and I left it in there for like 5 days and I forgot about it. And like it seeped rotting worm juice all into the backpack and it like the whole entire apartment smells like rotting worms right now.
Oh
It's a
no.
it's a tragedy, dude. Staxiums, do you want to come on and debate? I would love to have you on. But yeah. Louis,
That's
hey.
a bummer.
Yeah, well, it's okay because now I put it in my other backpack and I said, wow, this backpack is much better anyways. So cool. It's bigger, hold more stuff.
Are you gonna fly with worms?
I'm driving,
Oh,
dude.
got you, got you.
Yeah.
I know it sucks that I'm all the way up in the northwest corner of the United States. Everything is so far.
Oh, and and are you able to make one of those really quick with the new flyer? Only because I don't want to put up the old one. If you're able, I don't know if you're able to just like swap the flyer really quick. If you're in here and you can see this, cool. And it's like, yeah, god damn it.
Hey, Amy.
Hello.
Hi guys, we're gonna be doing some debates. We're just getting the rest of the creators up in here. We have someone special guest. They will be the queen of the debate tonight. They're really good. So
What part of Arizona are you in, Amy?
I am right now in Sierra Vista.
Oh, okay. We lived in Phoenix for 5 years, and it's about all I could take.
Yeah, it's about 10 to 15 degrees cooler up here.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah. It's kind of raining right now, but it's just like this tiny little blip on the radar, so I'm trying to ignore it.
Oh, nice.
Mercedes, I got my alligator.
that's
Nice.
cute. That's cute. Louis, do you want to come see it? Come here,
Oh,
baby.
did I totally summon the dog? Mm.
Louis.
My friend found it for me, and she's like, it's perfect because it's annoying too.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's the key.
Hey guys, to everyone who's in here, we're about to start some debates. If you're MAGA, please request up. We're gonna start debating. We got a pretty strong debater coming up here, and I'm excited to watch this. I was supposed to be packing, and she entered the chat, and I was like, oh fuck yeah! So this will be good to watch.
How far of a drive is it for you, Mercedes?
Almost 20 hours.
Oh yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, but don't worry, I'll be fishing the whole way there.
Aww,
Yep.
with your worm guts.
Yep. I love it. I like watching your content, but MAGA will never think their cult leader is wrong. We'll see about that.
That's very.
We'll
I
see about
mean,
that.
hi, you're a
If
prime
you're
example.
exactly. Um, hey Erudite, if you're in here, would you request up? Because I can't see if you're in here or not. We're gonna start some debates. If you're MAGA, please request up. If you're MAGA, please request up.
Paging all mega.
Paging all MAGA, paging all MAGA. Come on up, because we're about to have some fun. Uh,
Don't fish and drive.
don't fish and drive. Kyla, if you're in here, go ahead and request up. It's MAGA whistle. What is fishing a MAGA whistle? Go ahead and request up for your MAGA. If you're not scared to debate, we just want to have some debates. We just want to talk to you a little bit. Go ahead and request up. Let's see here. Just waiting for MAGA to request up. If you want to debate, request is grayed out for me. What?
There's like
Kyla,
100 people.
no. Hold on. Kyla's request is grayed out. Why would that be?
Is she still on her computer or did she go on her phone?
Kyla, are you on your phone or are you on your computer? Hold on one, guys. I'm going to ask her.
Kyle, did you say you're in Montana now?
I am, yeah.
What part?
Southwest Montana, kind of near Butte, little town called Anaconda.
I love the name.
I know, right? It used to be called Copperopolis, but they changed it like in the 80s. So, and we're like south of that too, because we have 40 acres off grid. So we're like maybe 30 minutes as a crow flies.
I saw you posted the other day you had a TBI. I had a
Yeah.
TBI in 2014.
Oh, no kidding. Do you have to? I'm on SSRIs from. I got mine in Iraq, so it's
Yeah.
left a mark.
Yeah.
Did they put you on any type of like? They put me on.
Oh no, they wanted to put me on everything, and I'm like, how the fuck is that gonna fix my TBI?
Yeah, I had like handshakes and stuff for a while, and they put me on an amphetamine of all things, lisdexamphetamine diacylate, and it actually helped. I mean, it got rid of the tremors, and then I still have some memory issues, and I kind of stumble on words, as you've probably already seen. So, and I overshare a lot.
Yeah, that's a big TBI thing. Oversharing, impulse control,
right.
anger, obsessive.
Oh, Anne says be careful with the words. So I guess I don't know what word I used. That was a no-no.
Well, yeah, I don't know what word she's referring to.
Okay. I'm trying to get her in here. Sorry, guys. One second.
It's all good.
Maybe she meant the drugs.
Oh, got you.
I don't know. I'm not sure. It just says careful with the words.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, it's the DRUGS word is definitely not. We can't say that.
Got it.
Get Anne up here.
Yeah, I was concerned the specific type of one would trigger it.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't suspect like Advil would trigger it.
Right. But the METH one might.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It really is finicky. I mean, I got a CGV for just a mundane nothing comment. And I'm like, what? So I don't know.
What is happening with viewership right now? What's going on?
Whoa, it dropped to 24. There
It's
were
because
100 of us.
I think it's because I've been in and out and trying to get the poster up. We're trying to figure out how to get Erudite in here. If what I can do is I can also like restart it.
That might be a good idea.
Hold on, guys. We're gonna restart. People will probably stop on this, and then I'll throw it. Perfect. They're looking at that black spaces, and they're like, "This is boring." Okay, guys. Request on up if you want to debate, and you are MAGA. Kai Clips Silly Arc.
Girl, no way.
Is that MAGA? No.
Girl, that's something.
Are they MAGA?
If that's actually Kai, yes.
Okay. Why do we have?
Girl, no. Let me be nice because you're nicer than me, and I can't.
Let's
say
try
anything.
this. I want to see. I feel like Kyla. I really want to see Kyla cook.
Hey, what's going on?
Hi, how's it going?
Do you guys mind if I turn on my cam?
No,
Yeah.
no space, no space, right?
So true. So true. Okay, So just as an aside, I promise I want to debate, but I'm super intrigued by what Anne was saying. Anne, do we know each other?
I know of you.
Uh-oh. All
Oh,
good
you're
things, I hope.
famous.
All good
Uh-oh.
things, I hope. There we go. It's super
Right.
bright in my car. My apologies. But yeah, what's going on? Yeah, I guess I'm pro-Trump. Were you guys debating any particular thing? I particularly like him because of his approach to immigration and the attempts to repeal the birthright citizenship that we have right now. I'm a fan of that.
Gotcha. So I guess like my main question would be like, what is immigration to you? Like, what's the purpose of immigration?
It depends. I think that most people would consider it just an economic boost, and I think that's kind of the issue. Immigration, certainly in the country's history, has been used for that, but I think the way it's being addressed now reduces the immigrants who are coming in as nothing more than like economic units, and I think that can be detrimental to the social fabric of the country. I think it devalues what citizenship means, hence why I believe that birthright citizenship ought to be repealed. But yeah, I don't know
So,
if that's
sorry,
So you
could I
go ahead.
clarify that you do concede that immigration is a net positive economically speaking?
Um, mm, I don't know if I would absolutely agree with that. I think there's a lot of studies that don't take into account a variety of factors. And so when you talk about like this increase in GDP, it's like you're weighing what is, a net positive effect against a lot of things that you also aren't studying or that you can't really compile very good data on. And I don't think that GDP in general is like a super good indicator of, whether or not something ought to be supported.
Well,
It's
what
not
do
a
you think
very
the
good
GDP is
value to
for?
project.
Well, what do you think the GDP is for? Like, what is the GDP good for?
To evaluate the country's, gross domestic product. It's
Like, what is? Yeah, you're citing the word, but like, what does that mean? Like, what are we talking about here?
we're talking about, the production versus the expenditures of a country, the economic input that somebody has to that country's ability to maneuver. But the one thing I say, it's like my first argument is I don't think that focusing on the economics and immigration is like the most beneficial thing to the country. And the immediate pivot is like, but it is good, right? And it's like, yeah, but that's totally not what I'm trying to hone in on. My whole
Sure,
argument is that doing that is the whole problem.
sure, but I want you to concede that like maybe you believe that it's better for the social fabric, but it comes at a cost economically speaking to
I mean, if,
restrict immigration.
whenever
So
you
I would prefer you to bite that bullet is really what I'm asking.
sure, but I mean, look, if I'm gonna bite that bullet, I'll add the caveat of like if we were to just suddenly have like a million more people in this country overnight, that would be incredible for the GDP because where more people are, the GDP grows. I mean, we have countries like China and
No, that's not
Japan.
true at all. Like,
There's
hold on,
plenty of
hold on,
countries.
hold
Hold
on.
on, there's plenty of
Well,
countries
I'm
like
going to
China.
interrupt you just.
Hold on, hold
Hold
on,
on. I'm
hold
going
on.
to pause you. No, I'm going to pause you just because
Okay.
like you're kind of incorrect here, right? Like if you dumped a million people, this is for a really good example as to why Egypt is really resistant to taking Palestinians. Because if you just take a lump sum of people and you dump them in a country without any infrastructure to handle it, that's not a boost for GDP, like fundamentally. In fact, it requires good immigration policy to ensure that the immigrants do contribute in GDP. You shouldn't just assume that immigration up means GDP up. That's not actually true at all. And I would say like lots of countries that are forced to take high amounts of refugees. Iran is another good example. Iran's GDP suffered significantly during the Afghanistan war because they took in such a large amount of Afghani refugees that they fundamentally couldn't really afford. So nobody's making this argument that GDP immigration up. The key thing that's
Wait,
that's
hold on.
America special, the key thing that's
Wait,
America
wait, wait,
special,
wait, wait.
the key thing that's
I
America
thought your
special.
co-panelist literally just made that point.
I think
Well,
what I
he,
was go
I
ahead.
think he
Sorry.
literally said just those two things literally right next to
Sure.
each other.
Really, what I
Actually,
was
is what
asking
he
you
said.
was, do you concede that immigration increases GDP? Now, there's two big caveats there. There's some implicit assumptions that I make that Kyle is fair to point out. The first is that I'm speaking of America, and you're also clarifying that this is about America. So there's a couple assumptions embedded in there. First off, that we're a globally north country that can
Norse?
accept
What the? That sounds like a dog whistle, pal.
global north as
I don't know
opposed
if we're a
to as
globally
opposed.
North country.
Nope, it's like first world country, but it's the economic term for it. You can look that up. That's a fairly well established term
Is that
for.
true? I've never heard that in my life. You might
You've
be
never heard
right.
of the
But that's
global
like the
south or the global north?
no. I thought you were talking about the global Norse. I was like, what is this, some pagan like revivalism?
North.
why would
No.
Okay.
why
Okay.
would
I
Great.
misheard you. I
It's
why
a
would
misheard you.
simple
Norse be a
mistake,
dog
man.
whistle?
That's
but
what I
wait,
said.
which is a
I
simple
heard it
misspeak.
wrong.
I
I
didn't.
heard it wrong.
No,
Cut
I
me
didn't.
some slack. Cut me
You
some
just
slack.
misheard. That's okay. All right. It's all
why
good.
would Norse be a dog whistle though? I don't even understand how that could be a dog whistle.
I think if you're talking about, like if the people who use the word Norse typically are part of like kind of Western European like pagan revivalist kind of sect.
Okay.
I mean, there's like some liberals who are in there too with like the neo-paganism, but most of the time it's like
like
it's a
weird
right-wing
crystal
thing.
guys who are into like pagan religion because they like spirituality, but they want it to be like maschio sapien. Like
Wait, but I
that's
think
it.
okay, like dog
Yeah.
whistles are indexical. So a dog whistle for what? Like
No, I was just being silly because it's like a buzzword. I wasn't being absolutely literal in my application.
Anyway,
My
okay,
apologies.
I'll rail us back on. In the case of immigration, right? What we're talking about in American immigration specifically, when Staxton is talking about immigration, he's talking about immigration policy that works. It's effective immigration policy because it is good for economy, which is why American immigration policies are pretty good. They're not perfect, and there's things that we could improve, right? But you would have to basically like, first of all, the GDP thing. I don't really like the hand waving, just to be clear. GDP is like probably one of the most important things globally for us to be able to compete upon. So I wouldn't hand wave it away so quickly, right? But I guess the other questions would be, okay, if you don't care about the GDP and you're not proud of America for having effective immigration policy, what are the things not being measured that you have issue with?
He's stuck.
Is he frozen?
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, he's like frozen, smiling. It's funny.
Frozen in time, right? Just like
Kinda
because he's
creepy.
conservative, right? Do you guys get it?
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Fuck up.
And is this,
Yeah, it's
I
stupid.
think I've debated this guy before. Is he like a former Nick Fuentes Groiper-esque guy who like got onto YouTube for a bit?
And he's gone.
I don't know about all that, but he's
If you can
he's
throw him back
definitely
in.
far right.
If you want to come up, buddy, you can come back up.
Frozen the Charlie Kirk smile. That's a good one.
I'm gonna be like right back. My headset's gonna die, so I'm just gonna swap out my like tech.
You're good. Okay, if you're MAGA, request on up. If you're MAGA, we would like to talk to you. And if I'm screaming in this mic, just let me know and I'll turn it down.
You're good.
I hope you sound good.
Okay, cool. I don't know anything about this technology, so.
If he invites himself back in, definitely.
Yeah, I think he. I'm looking for him in the invites, and I can't see him. Someone
Says
said
phone
Trump
mic
is
then.
king, so that's a good start. If you think Trump is king, you can. Here, I'm gonna just invite you. Let's
This
see
is the party of small government, by the way.
I'm MAGA, okay, or you're manga, manga. What is a mon?
Anime books.
Okay,
No.
That's what manga is.
sorry, Zoomer over here allegedly. So that's what the kids on the internet are calling me.
Not the Sorry. Let me.
Not the cop.
Remember those words?
Watch the words.
Oh, can you? Is that? Oh,
What,
okay.
communism?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's it.
I was just.
I
was
can
just
say
joking.
communist. No, I think it's fine.
Oh, hell no. Oh, apparently he was a groiper, or he is a groiper. That's nice.
Groiper. It sounds like a fish, but I'm probably thinking of,
Grouper.
So, yeah, I love me some grouper. Okay, y'all, if you are MAGA, request on up so we can have a little chit chat with you.
You might
you'd
wanna
love to
switch
talk to
back.
us.
Until she comes back, you might want to switch back into the
Yeah.
main.
It is a nice.
Oh
chair.
yeah. Oh yeah. How do I? Oh. There we are. Oh. Hi guys. Sorry.
No,
Oh, there she
I'm
is.
not. I'm
Who's
not
the
MAGA.
cat? Is
Oh,
You said you're not MAGA or you're MAGA?
no, he's just a goofy Christian. He's not MAGA.
Okay.
I,
If you're MAGA, request on up. If you're not scared to have the conversation about
The
your
marketplace of
beliefs.
ideas.
Yeah, this is a safe space for you, buddy.
is it? Sorry.
I was on my Discord today, and I was like, I used the word safe space, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, guys.
That's fine. Lived out over here.
Yeah, we're too based for it. I am the safe space. It would be cool if Versatile came up. I think Versatile would be fun for y'all to debate. Okay, this guy's named Bat Dan. with the Batman mask. I think this might be good.
Someone show a boot and they'll come with their mouths open.
Hi, Bat Dan. Did you vote for Donald Trump?
I did.
Oh, perfect. This is a great space for you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I just wanted, I think I was kind of in and out when I was hearing the discussion about immigration, and y'all left off on GDP, but I think it was Kyla that said that she doesn't use the argument of the how GDP isn't a metric of like economic success. Is that correct? Is that what you said earlier?
It's, I would say, like, in a really simplistic way, we define it as economic success. Absolutely. Okay.
Your mic's a little off, Kyla.
Yeah, you're really quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get really close then for now until my mic charges. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would say explicitly GDP is a measurement of, like, very simplistically what you said, economic success of a country.
Okay, but in specifically like talking about immigration, you would also agree that would be the same case for. I'm just talking about immigration, not generally. Like generally, I would probably agree with you, but just in this topic of immigration, would you agree with that?
Agree with what? That immigration in America often has economic benefits?
Right, like because like obviously the argument is, oh, immigration is bad, or like from the conservative side or whatever. Just to simply put it,
You're muted.
sorry, I don't know why I keep getting calls.
Here,
Sorry.
maybe I'll finish my claim because I
Yes.
want to make sure that you don't conflate maybe my claim with Kai's. I think GDP is one of the arguments for immigration. I don't think it's the only one. But GDP and like innovation in general is a really, really good reason for immigration.
Okay, and how do you know that? I guess how would you know that GDP is a good metric in terms of immigration? Are we just talking about? I can't remember if you talked in depth with Kai about like just looking at GDP's like output. Is that kind of what your position would be? Is that because we see that there's a better output in the GDP in the country, that therefore we should have immigration? And I'm talking about illegal immigration, by the way. I'm pro-immigration. That's like my position. It's like I'm pro-immigration, but I'm anti-illegal immigration. I don't know if that.
Sure. Let's start with that. What do you think? What is illegal immigration to you? Like, what is the most common form of illegal immigration that you're worried about?
Yeah, just influx of people. I mean, yeah, one of them would be influx of people, breaking into the country, without permission.
Okay, so
Well,
that's
just to be clear,
no illegal immigrants, right? Like it's a tiny, tiny portion. Most illegal immigrants, are people who
overstayed
their
visas.
Right. And I would consider that too. I think in the cases of illegal immigration that people, have the forethought of, okay, if this expires, I'm going to end up overstaying. I don't think it's, just like a day and night thing. Like, oh, well, I accidentally overstayed, so, it's kind of complicated now. I think people, you come here and then intentionally decide to.
Sure.
overstay,
I
and
think
then
the
go
only
through the
reason
process.
I think the only
Yeah.
reason we're clarifying your terminology is because breaking has this very clear connotation of like hopping the border when very often and that leads to incorrect like conclusions about how to fix immigration is to just like set up a wall, right? It could be any president who's advocating that solution. When largely the break in the system is overstaying visas. So we just wanted to be clear about the terminology that we're using here because it might give the wrong impression.
Sure. But I mean, obviously, in this case, I would agree with both. Like, it's both, the people that are, coming across and trying to quote unquote break in, even if it is a minority, but also the people that are overstaying the visa. I think I can still make a compelling, I guess, argument as to why it's still bad.
Illegal
Please do.
immigration.
Yes, in terms of illegal immigration,
Okay.
and then
What would
also
maybe
going
be
back.
helpful? Sorry, not to interrupt you. What would maybe be helpful for this debate is I'll frame my position on illegal immigration, and you can tell me where you differ. Is that a good idea?
Fair, let's do it.
Okay, so I agree that having illegal immigration is not good. I think anyone who comes into the country should come in legally. The issue is that most illegal immigrants are because of basically overstaying visas and failing to appear in asylum court. That's the most common form of illegal. The issue is that the processing time between the crossing the border and getting granted what's called an NTA versus actually being seen in court is typically years on average. So it's really easy to get lost in the system, both for bad reasons and for good reasons. Second of all, there's a really big issue in just immigrating successfully. So this is a really common issue in Canada, for example. Canadians have an exceptionally hard time immigrating to America through any legal means, which is why there's actually not a super solid flow of Canadian immigrants to America, because immigration through the legal process is extremely expensive and not easy. And this is speaking as somebody who's done the process. It's not easy to do at all, and it's incredibly expensive. And so I guess my issue with MAGA, for example, is that most of the immigration issues that we actually face that create illegals would have been rectified by the immigration bill that Biden put forward for a bipartisan.
Oh, she's
However, Republicans shut that bill down.
even though it was sponsored by the Border Patrol, by the way.
So I don't actually believe Republicans when they say they care about immigration. I think they're just mad at cost of housing and want somebody to blame. And migrants feel like an easy one when it's not immigration, it's zoning mostly.
So, sorry, I'm just gonna. Okay.
Really quickly, there was a debater that was before you, and I think you guys are both on the same side. I think that he was framing his position and then he got cut off. And I was going to. Do you mind if I replace you with him really quick?
Oh yeah, for sure. Go for it. I think he was trying to head somewhere.
Perfect.
So.
So sorry, man. You did
No,
great.
you're good. No,
Love
no,
you.
you're
Have a
good.
good night.
Thank you.
Our man is back.
Is the
Man.
typing too loud, by the way?
No, it's good.
It adds to it.
Bad Dan that guy was so wholesome. Thanks, Bad Dan. I love you.
I
phone-
remember. Kai, I know where I remember you from. Do you
Uh-oh.
remember me?
I do. You got mad at me because I
Shitty
turned off
Grant.
the
I
camera.
fucking knew it. So are you willing to have women on stream now anymore, or do you still turn off the cameras?
Whoa! Hold on. Let's
Just a
cool it
quick
with
question.
let's cool it with the profanity. Give me a
Just
minute. Give
curious,
me a
like, is
minute.
this too much cleavage, or should I undo one more button before you'll turn my camera off for the boys? I'm just curious.
I mean, I'm fine
Well,
with
frankly, I'm not
I can
sure.
pop mine out,
I
too.
currently have my hand up halfway as to block the lower half of the screen.
Oh,
So I'm
he's
not sure how
Are you
much
gay?
cleavage is being exposed. But I'm certain it is too much. I'm certain it is too much. There's not a shadow of a doubt in my mind.
Wait,
So
are
you're
you
gay.
even seeing Anna's face though? Because she's a really cute girl.
Can I debate her?
Go away. I don't.
Whoa!
Buddy, are you
The
married?
radical left running from the debate.
I was not married.
He's
Right.
not married. And are you in a committed relationship? Have you ever been in a committed relationship?
I have. I'm not at the moment, but I am seeing a few people.
Okay, is it
You,
Female?
Ew.
whore.
cleavage?
Whoa!
Hi, you're being a slut.
Is-
What's
I'm
going
not.
on?
Whoa,
I guess I'm
I'm not going steady. I'm not going steady. I'm going to.
Oh,
So what is?
being a fuckboy. Interesting
No,
Christian
no.
principle
I
going on
have
here,
kissed
Kai.
3 women in my life. Only 3 ever.
I believe
Prove it.
that.
So
That's
My
a
mom-
I'm
skill
confused.
issue.
I'm confused where's the cleavage? You're talking to like multiple girls at once, but the cleavage is the problem, or I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm.
Well, yeah. It's like, what's the question there? It's like,
Are you
know,
scared
I
of
could
the-
talk- I could talk to plenty of men, and
Does
if they
it-
were
does
like
it make
naked,
you
that would be an issue too.
lustful?
What?
Well, I
And
mean, I
that's
don't think
against
you're
your
talking.
religion?
Yeah, I don't. I think the reason why you'd talk to men is probably a different reason than why you'd be talking to ladies that you'd
Well,
be potentially interested in. But
But a very clean shade of
Hey.
look going on.
Kai,
It,
it says-
it wouldn't
it
work
says
out.
you're
Our,
Mormon.
our ideological differences would make a long-term relationship impossible. I'm willing to
It's-
admit that.
It
I'll
says
be
you're
the
Mormon.
bigger
Is
man.
that accurate?
What's up?
It says you're Mormon. Is that accurate?
I'm a
Someone said that
member
in the
of the
comments.
Church of Jesus
Of
Christ,
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I grew up
Oh,
Mormon.
there it is.
I'm an
Yo, let's
ex-Mormon.
go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Are you from Utah?
No, I grew up in LA.
Okay, real.
But
Hey,
I am
LA's pretty
currently in Utah. I went to BYU.
No
and
way.
And then realized that I
Good girl.
hated everything about the church and the system and a lot of stuff. So then dipped.
Well,
Sorry.
man,
I
hope
still
not.
have
It's
mad
okay.
love for the Mormons.
It's cool to have another brother in the chat. I love you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate the love. Do you guys want to talk about like the turning off the women's cameras thing or like the immigration thing? I'm cool, whatever. My phone might honestly get too hot again though, because that's what happened last time.
Kylie, you're heating up his phone.
Yeah.
You're causing a malfunction.
It's getting too hot in here. It's too crazy.
That's why
Anyway.
he's covering it up, okay?
So, well, I think, well, there's one thing. You know, if we look at some of like the largest GDPs in the world, there is obviously like a super large correlation with like population increase and size and an increase in GDP. And a lot of the times when these like numbers about GDP are mentioned, they're really like not factoring in this kind of like individual level GDP. They're really just factoring in like this larger net effect. And that's why, you know, countries like India and China are going to have huge GDPs. It's because they have like over 1 billion people. And if the United States were to have like a sudden decrease in the amount of people that were coming in and contributing to the economy, or if we were to deport people, obviously the GDP would take a hit. And it's because, you know, the pool that's contributing to the GDP, if it's not being calculated correctly, is obviously going to be affected. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much about the economics of everything. That was kind of like my opening
Now
statement.
hold on.
Yeah, wait, could I
Hold
would
on.
love to challenge you on some of that
Guys,
stuff that you
like,
said.
Look, GDP, is it really good for anything? Who's to say? Moving on. What do you mean? Which measure of GDP are you comfortable using? Real? Like which one? Naturalized? Do you have a
Like I
preference?
said, the things that I'm most interested in discussing will never even be included in any calculation of the GDP.
Okay, I would love to point out one quick thing, which is I looked up GDP per capita, and
That's important.
the top six countries are tiny, minuscule countries, which is a mathematical effect that happens whenever you take per capita, it's weighted to the smaller countries. They'll be weighted towards the top or the bottom. Actually, places like India or China will be weighted near the average. But number 7 is the US of A, baby. Seems like we're doing great.
Where's India and China there? Where is India?
Not even. Let me check, because they're not in the top 30. That's what I'm seeing. India is 136. China is
We're
69.
7 to 10 for OECD.
Do you think that then is probably like not a very like good reflection maybe of, you know, like the lifestyles and like the prosperity in all of these
I
countries?
think two things. First off, GDP per capita is like, if you weight per capita, it's still indicative of different metrics. Like I said, whenever you divide by the amount of people in a country, the people like Vatican City will shoot near the top or shoot near the bottom because the way that it's weighted. I could explain the math behind that. But the second is GDP is a concomitant to like 90% of economic benefits or monetary benefits that we see. Yeah, it's not a perfect way to encapsulate everything, sure, but anything that you do care about is largely at least somewhat it's a concomitant to the GDP.
Well, you just told me that the Vatican is in the top 5, so I think that's about where we can go about
Well,
the
According to
that's-
your
that's-
source,
hold on,
you
hold on.
asked for
Let's
GDP
take a
per
look.
capita, and
Hold
I'm
on.
saying
This
it's
is a pause. This is a pause. Nobody who's reasonable in economics is typically going to be talking about GDP per capita. That's why I wanted to pause you when you're talking about this, because you're like, really, the size of country really matters. You notice it's always the big countries with the biggest GDP. Yeah, but if you use GDP per capita, it's just not a super good measure, which is why we typically use nominal GDP or real GDP. So I'm trying to figure out, when you're talking about GDP and hand weighting it, do you even know what you're hand weighting? What's the difference between nominal GDP and real GDP? And why would you use
I
one?
can read that.
I think Kyla, this is the tough part, because there's literally no way for me to engage with the question you're asking me without us continuing indefinitely on the road to debate economics, which literally in like the first thing I said, I told you guys I wasn't interested in doing, because I'm more interested in talking about, you know, maybe some of the social ramifications or Trump's policy. Like if we're talking about Trump's policy to repeal birthright citizenship, I mean, what do you think of that? Do you think that's a good thing?
I see. Why do you want to run away from the GDP argument specifically?
Because I didn't bring it up. Because it literally was not my claim. Because I couldn't care less. Because
Just to be clear,
the GDP is going to be cited to tell me that the Vatican is in the top 5. Like,
That's
you know,
hold on.
most beneficial
Don't,
places.
Kai,
And it's also going to be
you're
used
lying.
to tell me that China
Kai,
and India are like
Kai.
in the 130th mark.
Kai, you're
and,
lying.
And then it'll be
You're lying.
turned around. Okay, yeah, go ahead. We'll keep
Okay,
talking
so
about
here's
it.
what happened. I
Let's go.
said we all cited GDP, and you said actually we should use statistics like GDP per capita. And then I'm like, okay, well, what happens when we take GDP per capita? Vatican City's like number 2. India is like 139. So obviously this is a terrible metric. And you go, why are we talking about GDP per capita to begin with? You brought that up, bro.
Do you believe that when people are citing the negative effects of deportations or restriction to immigration on the country's GDP, that they are willing to use the per capita GDP in order to manipulate?
No, because it's an
statistics around its effects?
irrelevant piece of data that is not helpful for the reasons that I previously stated.
Yeah, and this is where we just simply disagree. I think people. lie
Okay, wait,
with-
hold on. Can you pick a side? Is it a helpful metric, or are you mocking the fact that India is 139 and Vatican City is 4? Because that's GDP per capita, not GDP. That's GDP per capita. That's the metric that you asked for.
No, hold on. I didn't ask for that. I never
Okay.
asked for GDP.
You
per
clarified it would be a better metric to use.
When did I say that? When did I say that?
You said GDP is unhelpful because why aren't we caring about per capita? Is that a mischaracterization of what you're
those
saying?
words did not come out of my mouth.
Okay,
Those
why
words
did you bring
literally
up per
did not come
capita?
out
You
of my
said per capita. Why did you bring up per capita then?
Did I actually mention per capita? I think you were the first one to
You
bring that up.
mentioned, yeah, you were talking about the sizes of countries.
Okay, yeah, no, that is true. That is true. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I don't think I said per capita verbatim, but yeah, talking about the sizes of countries, you know, and this is what I'm trying to point out, right? The issue I have with kind of the immigration debate is that when you talk about economics and statistics, and admittedly, you know, I'll be the bigger man. I'm not an econ major. I don't study economics. I'm more interested in you know, philosophy. I'm more interested in some of the other questions, and I've also been out of the country and haven't studied in 2 years. So I'm willing to admit that you guys are probably going to know more about econ than me. And if you're going to ask for definitions or ask me to argue something that I haven't studied, I think you would agree that for me, the most reasonable and the most intellectually honest thing to do would probably be to address questions that I'm better versed on, because that is actually, you know, just a good faith thing for me to do, because I don't want to speak out of my depth.
Kai,
So
I
I'm
think
willing to
that's-
admit that. You know, I don't want to get into the, you know, weeds about economics because I'm not an economist. And this is the issue. Because I'm not an economist, you guys could say whatever, and just because I'm not, you know, well read enough about
Kai,
hold on,
wait,
let me
hold on,
finish,
hold
because
on, hold on. We're
this
not
is
gonna
an important
finish
no,
this.
let me just finish. Let me just finish.
Well, I'll just, well,
30
no,
seconds.
you're talking for a
30
while.
seconds,
I'll
30 seconds, 30
totally
seconds,
grant
30
you. I'll
seconds.
just totally
30
grant you. I'll
seconds,
just totally
please,
grant you,
please,
Kai.
please,
I
30
will
seconds.
totally grant you.
No.
I will totally grant you that we can just move on from economics because it's not your wheelhouse and you don't want to get into that.
It's
Just to
also
be
not my
clear,
original claim at all.
Well, it was part of our original claim. That's why we were
Oh,
discussing.
okay, my bad. I didn't know you guys made the claims and I came up to debate.
The whole reason that we were talking about immigration is because Staxium said that it's good for the GDP, and you were like, "Pshaw, who cares about the GDP?" And I was like, "We do. We care about the GDP. It matters." And then we got into the nuance of GDP. It's super fair if afterwards you realize that you were out of depth and you don't want to go into that. That's fine. You can just concede us the immigration GDP point. We can move on. But that's why we got into it in the first place. And I don't want to lose the framing of this.
Okay, fair. Hold on. Let me respond to that. I'll respond real quick, and then I'll finish what I was saying. We can get to the point that I'm trying to discuss. The response to that is at the very beginning, when he asked me to concede that immigration would be a net benefit for the GDP, or that, you know, it has this net positive effect on the GDP. What did I say? I said, you know, sure, I'll like kind of grant you that, but honestly, it's not really something I care about because there's things included in, or there's things that are unincluded in the GDP that I care about more. And the moment I said that, you guys tried to make it as if I was, you know, 100% siding with this, or if I was willing to debate it. And in fact, most of the debate that occurred happened between you, Kyla, and Staxiums, because Staxiums made the claim about the net positive effect of immigration and people, and you actually disagreed with him. I wasn't even the main issue in the debate about the economics or the GDP.
Kai.
But the claim that I wanted to make, and this is important just to contextualize, the issue is because I don't know enough about economics, I don't know when to call you out on BS. And this is something that actually happens a lot within the online debate sphere. I don't know enough to know when you guys are wrong, but all the time I see these, you know, armchair statisticians.
That's fine. You don't have to know enough about economics
I
to
just want to
debate
finish
with
this
you
one
on
point.
economics. I
Armchair
already granted you
statisticians,
that. You can dismiss that
armchair
one.
philosophers,
The issue is,
and it comes
just
out
because you don't understand something doesn't mean that you get to dismiss wholesale a point. You can agree that essentially you don't know enough. But the issue is that your argument for immigration, one of the strongest arguments that we have, is the economic benefit, and you want to hand wave it because you don't know enough about it. But if that's an essential piece of immigration, you're hand waving potentially up to 40% of the evidence for immigration generally. This is why it's important. So I don't expect you to be an economist. I do expect you to be informed on what the fuck you're talking about. If you're talking about immigration, I'm sorry, GDP and its relationship to it is kind of fucking important.
I understand. Well, hold on. Let's cool it with the expletives. But second of all, it's not so much that I, you know, don't think we can engage at all about economics. It's more so that I can't take your word as an expert, because when you know, perhaps at times masquerade as an expert in philosophy or somebody well-read in philosophy, later on somebody who is actually better read can come out and claim, or can come out and prove that you've said things that are untrue, and I just would have never even known. And I think that's the issue, is that I can't take you to be an expert on it. And that's where I think we should divert on the topic of economics.
What are the other areas of immigration that you have an issue with? Let's leave the 40% evidence behind, and we'll move on to the next point.
Yeah, I think there's an entire culture around it. There's an entire culture around the idea of citizenship that's kind of spurred on by the conversation about immigration as largely economic, that devalues what it means to be an American, that I think is going to lead to the collapse of, what America is as a nation. I do think that it increases, or rather it decreases social trust and social capital, the participation in institutions. I think there's plenty of things. And my ultimate claim, like the root of my disagreement with it, is that I think the America that this nation was founded to be will slowly disappear because we're not applying very rigorous standards. And one of those standards, for example, is allegiance. One of the things is loyalty. I think we have a severe lack of loyalty and allegiance to this country. I think that's being exhibited both by people who are citizens of the country, but also people who have immigrated in the last generation and have been naturalized. I think
MAGA definitely exhibits a lot of very anti-American values, very traitorous values.
Hi, everybody. I like this, Anne. Let's explore this debate tree.
Wait, really quickly, I want to ask you if you know what Bayes' theorem is.
Ooh, Bayes.
Bayes theorem? I invented it, actually.
No, Bayesian statistics.
Notice how all he has is like these little quips, like there's no substance. Like
I was being silly. I was making a joke.
He's funny and charismatic. I've said this from day one. He's one of the most charismatic groypers. Okay, if you were less principled, you would be Nick Fuentes, my friend.
Oh, whoa.
Sorry.
Whoa. Okay. Anyway, so Anne, I'm actually not familiar.
You don't know what Bayes' theorem is.
I've heard the term before, but I couldn't define it for you.
Well, this is what exactly Kylo was alluding to, is when you have a hypothesis and you're looking at the evidence to support that, you look at things that raise the probability of the hypothesis or lower the probability of the hypothesis. And if you take, people's word for that, as far as what we've said about the economy, that should be something that raises the probability above 50%, because any hypothesis you start before having any background knowledge at 50-50 for being either true or false. So we have 50%. So I think the whole hand waving the econ stuff away was just like ridiculous. I think that was embarrassing.
Okay. I feel embarrassed.
This girl's like armchair philosophers, but you don't know anything about philosophy.
Well, hold on, hold on.
Kai, I've got a degree in philosophy. Can I talk to you?
Oh, for real?
I don't have a degree in philosophy. What do you think?
But I'm not an armchair philosopher. Is that
what do you think? Okay, this is like literally pointing out the issue, right? It's like if somebody comes up to me and they tell me I have a degree in philosophy, or if they come and claim to be an authority on the subject, and I don't know enough about philosophy to know when they're wrong, that's going to be the issue.
I thought that was your field.
Hold on. This is something that occurs a lot, I think, as well, with like the way that people can manipulate statistics. A lot of people will be able to cite these credentials, but frankly, it's like I'm not in a position to know when you're talking about something that might be incorrect. Somebody who is a statistician could probably say, hold on, there's like some data manipulation, or there's something that's not being taken into account. But as long as you and I are having a conversation where I have to concede, or I have to believe that you're an authority, but I also am not able, I'm not fluent enough to know when you're saying something that I could disagree with if I were an authority, we're not ever going to have something productive. Because
I actually agree with you.
You'll be able to make a million claims, and I'll never be able to even say whether that's true or false. And a bunch of statisticians are going to be looking at me, and they're going to be saying, I would disagree with half of this stuff. You two are probably both statisticians. The only problem is that I have to concede that you're an authority, and I have no room to stand on.
Could I clarify? I think that's a really interesting point, and I could probably cite a bunch of studies or meta-analyses that would prove my point in the abstract. Would you cite those as like could I use that as evidence, or is that also just me?
You're probably not going to like my answer here.
Okay.
That was originally where I found this issue, is because I would watch these debates between people like Rose Rist, people like Sean Last on the right wing side. I would watch all of these debates between these different statisticians. Meanwhile, I'm here, I don't have a statistics degree. I try to study it so that I can, know how to interpret the data better. But I found that these two people would constantly disagree. And I just realized it's like, whoa, you could be citing this meta-analysis to me, but neither you nor I truly know how to interpret the data in, a very accurate way. And so you're not going to like the answer, but I'm actually kind of against this whole culture of like
Sure.
the infinite citing of statistics, especially when within the realm of statistics, you have issues like a replicability crisis. You
Sure.
have issues where there are, like, for example,
I don't
in
think you know
and
anything
this is
about
not, by the way, to
replicability.
argue this position, but
Let me-
on the issues of like race and science, there's a huge publication bias in the kinds of, like, if you look at the spread of the studies that come out and the positions they support, you can tell there are issues that go so much deeper than just the studies themselves and go into the way that they're conducted and the reason for their publications, and they go to the publications, and there's just so many things that I and you are unequipped to talk
This
about.
is like an
I think-
unskippable
Yeah.
ad. But really
Could I-
quickly, so
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
the thing that you would do with statistics, let me just give you a little rundown on this because you admittedly like don't know a lot about statistics. The thing that you would start with is what the expert consensus is. Now, if you have reason to doubt the expert consensus, that's wonderful. You can bring up those reasons to doubt that, and that might bring the probability down a little bit.
I doubt them.
But you take okay, you can doubt them. That's fine. That's your feelings, whatever. Because you admittedly don't know anything about statistics.
And you see, this is the
You
issue.
have
This is
the
the issue.
hypothesis. Look, okay. Let's not. When you say you're not an expert, let's not maybe like do the little quips thing. It's not cute. So look, you have a hypothesis. The hypothesis starts at a 50-50 probability. You take something like an expert opinion, and that raises the hypothesis pretty significantly because experts are the people who spend their entire lives dedicated to studying these things. Now you say, okay, well, there's problems with the methodology, but I don't really know what the problems are, and I don't know how to accurately assess the problems, and I think there might be problems with funding, but I can't really give an argument why there's problems with funding, and all of these little things. None of those raise the probability back down to 50%. Like, you still have reasons
Well, it would
to
actually
trust
be
the expert
decreasing it. It
opinion.
wouldn't be raising it to 50. It'd be
Am
decreasing.
am I getting this right? So like when we talk about the economy, it's, well, I don't know enough about that, so I'm not going to talk about it. And now I think you wanted to go to philosophy, but it's
Yeah,
now
Kai.
that you don't know enough about philosophy.
No,
you know,
hold
the
on. I
conversation,
didn't
or-
say I didn't say I didn't know enough about philosophy. Like I could give you my worldview. I could do my best to defend it, to defend like the philosophy or the morality behind it. What I mean to say is that I think within the online debate realm, there's plenty of people who cite statistics both on the left and the right, who myself included, by the way, who are probably not fluent enough in the language of statistics to properly understand the data, and that also contributes to an environment where it's just like I throw a study at you, you throw one back at me, I throw one at you, and it's like, dude,
Sure.
we could do
Wait,
that
so
forever.
the way to fix that is to defer to the experts to defer to the consensus amongst experts until you have good enough overriding
There's an
evidence.
even
You
easier
don't have
solution though here, Kai. Like I guess maybe to try to appeal to you, right? I think appeal to authority is a little bit cringe at times. That's not the same.
But that's not even an appeal to authority. That's
I didn't
like,
say that it was, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Looking to the expert consensus is what we do all the time, right? Like when we drive vehicles, for example. Imagine, Kai, you're in a car right now. It seems like you probably trust the consensus of experts when it comes to safety, when it comes to combustion and engines and how they should work, right? We appeal to like consensus of authorities all the time. When it comes to debate situations, right? What's important to do is to erect structures of thinking where you can test heuristics and like fallacies quickly on the dime, so that even if you don't know a study, for example, you're grounded enough in how to think well that you can go, this doesn't quite pass the sniff test. And to
I
do
agree.
that, you just need a little bit of basic methodology. You don't need to
Agreed.
know like what every single statistical method is, and then you can engage from there, right? And so like the fact that Staxians maybe has a leg up on philosophy doesn't mean that you can't engage with him on philosophy. It means that you probably should, because everyone can do philosophy. It's like one of the least stated fields in the world because it's just thinking.
I agree. Kyla, this is, I think, a fantastic point to leave off of. But would you agree that in a subject like statistics or economics, that's much more difficult to do because it requires an amount of mathematical literacy that the average person
so then
just doesn't
defer
have?
to the expert. Defer to the experts.
And this is the other issue. It's like, this is where the heuristic part of this becomes super important. There's plenty of things that experts advocate for people to do, and there's plenty of things that have been a consensus in the past or can be a consensus in the future that, my heuristic just naturally rejects, that I am obviously like going to be allergic to. And what I think the
It's not
problem
a
is,
feeling. It's just a feeling.
yep, feelings don't care about your facts. And I think that's totally true.
Right.
I think that there are plenty of cases wherein, people could tell me, I could see a ton of statistics about the assimilation of immigrants, but then I could also see like an LA riot where people are waving the Mexican flag and something's telling me maybe the assimilation is not
Could I-
occurring just as well as the experts are telling me it is.
Could
And
I-
I think that's the case. That's what's happening in the
Okay,
United
Can I
States.
jump in here?
I'll just follow you. Say I just grant you all that, where you're like, well, the experts are saying this, but this isn't quite passing the sniff test. So then the next question is, how do you engage with that? how do you ensure, for example, that the like Mexicans burning the flag of America that you're seeing on your algorithm isn't in some way selection biased, which I'm sure you're aware that anything algorithmic is very selection biased. So what are the steps that you would take to look into and figure out, am I getting selection biased data?
Well, part of it could be, you go to LA, but then you can also kind of look at larger trends over time. And I think when we begin to analyze these trends, we see that, these things that I'm talking about kind of are the case. Maybe
Let me give you an alternative.
Could I jump in?
Why don't you look up, for example, typical arrest rates in most violent riots and protests and compare that to the LA riots per capita and see if the LA riots are more violent or less violent in average compared to other previous arrest cases.
Because there were less arrests? Is that the argument?
Okay, Kai, could I have a clear? I think you're
rule of thumb, right? If you
I don't think that's at all. The standard we should be going by, especially when like the standard and like the bare minimum to warrant an arrest in a place like California is something that has changed significantly over the last.
Kai. Here's my frustration. I think that you're largely saying, look, I can't trust stats. I can't I have a gut feeling about this. I have anecdotes, and then I can look at I could look at No, you didn't say stats. I can look at trends over time, and I feel like trends over time is just another way to say statistics. So I'm confused when you're citing trends over time. Like, what metrics are you using? And isn't that the exact same thing that a statistician would do?
It certainly could be.
So are you against statistics, looking at broad trends?
I never said I was against statistics broadly. I said I was against the way that they're weaponized in online debates, because most of the time...
but these grippers love weaponizing statistics. Let me tell you.
Hey, I don't disagree with you. There's nothing worse than when somebody cites some statistic that has some obvious methodological flaw. Like, I don't disagree with you.
You don't even know how to determine if there's a methodological flaw. That's the problem.
Well, hold on. That's not entirely true. Like, just because I'm not a statistician doesn't mean that I also can't. And this is where I agree with you guys. Obviously everybody has to some degree, defer to an authority, because how are we going to learn what statistics is? We go to a teacher, we go to somebody who knows about statistics. The problem I have is that and by the way, statistics have always been weaponized. Studies have always been weaponized. Why do you think that we were told for, several decades that we were supposed to eat a bunch of cereal? Do you think it's because doctors were paid off? Probably. Do you think that people
Kai, here's my frustration with the way that you're talking about this. You're kind of talking.
This goes back to the fundamental question that I was asking you, which is that if you don't trust any of these statistics necessarily, how do you come to conclusions, especially if you're aware that you're going to have media structures incentivized to give you selection bias data? One of the things that you offered was to go on the ground, which is obviously not reasonable for most people to go and do. Most people aren't going to fly to LA and check it out. So I offered another strategy, which would be like, okay, well, one thing we're hearing about the LA riots is that they're really, really violent. So a way that we could test that is comparing arrest records, which you can just Google. You can just look that up. And you rejected that outright. That's fine. You can reject that premise as
what do you think about my rejection, though? Do you think it's like a reasonable rejection that the standard for arrest has now been lowered in the state of California in a significant way in the last 20 years?
I think the stats would basically apply largely enough that you could use it as a decent rule of thumb.
What's the justification for that? How do you justify that claim that you just made? Like, how do you come to argue that?
Well, not to get too stats heavy on you, one thing that I would utilize would be the central limiting theorem, right? If the data points are over 30, but particularly if they're over 105, I can normalize this data decently well that I can compare things across time. And most studies are going to adjust for things like this. For example, in most recidivism and violent studies on crime, they will include within there the definitions of crime in each of the studies that they're analyzing over time. So you can look into these things to figure out if the data around what crime is being done where and how we're determining what crime is the same, right? In the case of so for example, I have a feeling if I looked at damage to private property, it's probably about the same over time. I'd be surprised to hear that it's changed. And so if it had changed, I would maybe grant that to you. But I can't think of even a woke reason as to why damage to private property would suddenly just be updated in the last 2 years.
So, well, if you were talking about arrests, now we're talking about a different thing. And I'd agree that, if you were to study the LA riots and the damage that was done to property, maybe you would find that it was relatively the same. I actually agree with you. Maybe you would find that in LA, the damage done to property was probably pretty similar to some other riots that have been done for a variety of reasons. And maybe it wasn't because the arguments were more so against the police and they weren't so much against a system that was racist, and maybe more against, just the efforts of deportation. There was probably more resistance against police than there was in some of the other riots where there was more looting. It's not to say that there wasn't looting in LA, but it is to say that maybe, the causes were different and the way that people took out their anger was different as well. That being said, again, what I'm worried about is not so much like the amount of arrests that happened. It's the cause that's being pushed. The fact that there are people flying Mexican flags in America, and that the Mexican Independence Day has been made a holiday at the city level in many states across the country that are close to the southern border. Those are the issues that I see. And you could cite me any number of statistics, and none of those would tell me that what I'm seeing in LA is okay. None of that tells me that we ought to be okay with the country taking that kind of direction.
So wait, I have a question real quick.
You've probably seen a bunch of videos and footage, for example, of people burning the American flag. Being on as a liberal, as a base liberal, I've seen a bunch of footage of people preventing that. I've seen a bunch of people kicking out leftists. I've seen a bunch of people actively intervening on violence, right? And so I would just grant you, there's a selection bias to my feed, but there's a selection bias to your feed. And so the issue is, which one's true?
Okay, here's another question. Why is it occurring in the first place?
Kai, wait, I have a quick question. I want to jump in.
I have a quick
question. Sorry, I'm going to jump in.
Do you think that was happening in LA 40 years ago?
Kai, sorry, real quick.
No, it's okay. I'm interrupting.
Are you against St. Patrick's Day, or is it only when brown people are celebrating their culture?
So what is St. Patrick's Day? What's the reason for St. Patrick's Day?
I feel like it's an Irish holiday. It's celebrating Irish culture.
So hold on. So you don't know what St. Patrick's Day is?
No, but honestly, I'm not sure what Cinco de Mayo is either, but I still celebrate it with my friends. It's awesome.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a difference. There's a little bit of a difference between celebrating St. Patty's Day and celebrating the Mexican Independence Day.
San Francisco and San Pedro.
So that's the issue, is it's independence? All right, that's not American enough? Is it independence and Independence Day?
Wait, say that again. I couldn't hear you.
That's not American enough for you, celebrating independence. You're like, okay, no, we can celebrate culture.
Hold on. Celebrating another country's Independence Day when the language of the nation that those people are in is actually currently being shifted to more resemble the country whose Independence Day they are celebrating, when entire communities are being restructured, when legal documents are being written oftentimes first in Spanish, then in English in these same cities that are celebrating the Independence Day.
Can you calm down a little bit?
I absolutely think that that's a bigger issue than St. Patty's Day, dude.
I swear. Okay, first thing, let's be real. Okay, yeah, like maybe in specific stores that are catering towards Mexican individuals, but like I grew up in LA, English was 100% the number one spoken language in that city.
I went to LA
unquestionably.
I went to LA, and like a couple weeks ago, I got through my entire trip only speaking Spanish.
Yes. I also you can also get through your entire trip only speaking English.
Where? Oh, bro.
In LA. What are you talking about? You think you need to know Spanish in order to drive through the highway?
Dude, hold on. You know there's a significant difference between
You're pulling up on Highway 5 and then it's just like, me amo Kai, and then you're like, fuck, I don't know what the hell this means.
No, I actually do, because I speak Spanish.
Nice.
Yo puedo hablar español, amigo. A mí no me importa. Yo lo puedo hablar genial. Pero bueno, eso es otra cosa. But anyway, so the point that I'm trying to make is that this is the United States of America, and I could get around cities in the country without ever needing to have any kind of proficiency in the English language. I think that's a problem, and it's not so much this. Well, what about if there's tourists? What if there's people, and maybe we're just offering it as another alternative? All of that sounds good.
Donald Trump is a fucking nigger. He's a kind-loving faggot. Throw Trump in the wood chipper.
Hey, I'm sorry about that. I didn't know that guy was going to be doing that stuff. I mean,
that's not your fault.
I feel bad.
It might be.
What? Okay,
come on.
As well. I feel like you set that up.
I did not. I have no clue who that was.
Kai, honestly, it sounds like your frustration, like when it comes to policy, is catering to the fact that you speak as little Spanish as possible, which kind of runs counter to how quickly you want to talk about Spanish. But like that sounds like such a negligible issue. Exactly.
I actually am curious.
He's so excited to speak Spanish, but then the moment that like people are like, "Hey, I speak Spanish too," you're like, "Get the fuck out of this."
Hey, say it. Speak Spanish. Speak Spanish. Let me hear that accent.
I don't really speak Spanish.
No, you lied to me. I can't trust you as an authority anymore.
Me?
Anyway. Anybody who does speak Spanish want to come at me in the chat?
This is like a weird, like he's crashing out. I don't.
I don't even get the
He has a
argument. I never said I spoke
Spanish crash
Spanish.
Spanish crash
Literally,
out.
like,
I
you-
took
We're gonna
3 years in
get
high school
crashed
like
out
10
in
years ago.
Spanish.
You know what
Wait, hold up. Spanish Dean Withers be like, dame mi
No, you know
lapicero
what
de
it's like?
ansiedad.
It's like
Eso
in
es mi
Toy
lapicero
Story.
de ansiedad. No es un vape. Es
See,
una
here's
lapicero de
here's
ansiedad.
here's
like
what
it
Kai loves
really-
to do. He steals fucking the language of
Hey,
a culture, and then
Don't
he
say
goes,
the F word, please.
"Oh, sorry. Why?
I had to
I
think
can't.
too.
I was trying. I was like, did I say a slur? No, I didn't. Okay.
Jackson will often pride.
No, it's like in Toy Story when they take Buzz Lightyear and they accidentally like fuck him up, so he starts like speaking.
Whoa,
Man,
and come on!
that is
he
not
just
cool.
said
It's worse when girls do it.
he's asserting a boundary. Okay.
Who said I was a girl? What if I'm a man?
You make a bad man.
Oh,
Just really quick for everyone in the live, just make sure to like it a bunch of times and share it out because it helps it get to more people. And if you're MAGA in the chat, or if you're a leftist who thinks that we are too based, go ahead and request that. We're debating either one of y'all. So okay, continue. Sorry, guys.
All right, I'll finish up because I do got to go into the gym. I took my pre-workout.
let's
My crash
summarize.
out.
Let's
My
talk
crash.
about
Hold on.
the-
My crash out is because I've got 300 milligrams of caffeine running through
Oh,
my
we
system.
can tell.
Just that's your
Um,
testosterone.
Well, no, that's another thing. It's not pure because there's also caffeine. But anyway, what do you guys think? Like, I'll be a little more serious for a minute. I appreciate you guys not kicking me and being funny too. What do you guys think though? Like, to me, genuinely, I see that kind of stuff, and I understand, Kyla, you're right to point out that there is like this bias, this confirmation bias in the stuff that we see in our algorithms. But I think, whichever way you cut it, there has been a consistent trend in the United States of a shifting of the culture to not be like assimilation, but it has become significantly more like just this adopting of foreign cultures and the shifting of America's kind of natural climate to accommodate those cultures without requiring assimilation. And I think that the waving of the Mexican flag, the celebrating in many of these cities of the Mexican Independence Day, the fact that there are plenty of communities now in the country where you would be totally fine speaking a language that is other than English, I think all of these things are contributing to a trend that is going to be detrimental to the social cohesion of the country in the future. And I don't think that's a ridiculous thing to say.
Sure.
What
Could I?
do you guys think? Do you think it's
I'm
an
gonna
issue?
I'm gonna throw one thing on. So my last name's Kozak. I'm like Eastern European. My ancestors are Ukrainian. I've got a Ukrainian flag on my window, and no one seems to think that I'm invading their country. Like I'm trying to show support for like solidarity for a country that I feel like is grieving right now. And I don't think anyone's like I feel like. Do you understand that it feels like there's a distinction sometimes made between white people celebrating their culture and brown people celebrating their culture?
Absolutely, but I think that's almost entirely chalked up to the fact that we don't have millions of Ukrainians immigrating to the country every year. I mean, it's like if there were millions of Ukrainian immigrants coming to the country every year, I am sure that Republicans would be like, I think this is a foreign invasion. I don't think we should be taking more Ukrainian refugees.
In like the 40s and 50s, there was like this massive wave of like Irish panic because there was a
Yeah.
whole bunch of like, Irish and other white cultures immigrating here.
Exactly.
The issue is that, well, okay, I'm glad that you agree with me. One of my biggest issues when you look at this viscerosity is that typically people are coming to America because they already like the principles and values of the country. They like it. And whether or not they perfectly assimilate, I could even grant you that usually first generation like immigrants don't assimilate perfectly to the broad culture. That's just expected because typically they're adults by the time that they come. The reality is that by the time they have their kids and their kids have kids, they're typically almost entirely integrated into the broader culture because there's so much pressure to do so. And their parents, by and large, will support that because that's why they came in the first place. Right? That's what you consistently see. You see this in Muslim immigrants. You see this in all immigrants, that their children are just going to assimilate more and more and more. And this is particularly the case with like Mexican immigrants and other Spanish and like Latin immigrants.
Kai, I also have a question for you as well. If you like, do you think there's a pretty prevalent issue of illegal immigrants sometimes being like 4-year-old kids, right, who get taken across the border, and then they like get told by their parents, okay, you got to assimilate, you got to learn English, like we're not going to teach you Spanish, you're going to grow up, and they grow up almost as a like essentially, in my view, as American as I am. Do you like if they are consistently assimilating? Do you still feel like that's an issue, even though they're illegal immigrants?
Staxiums, what is an American?
It's part of the culture. I don't know. It's a nebulous identity. I don't know if I could define it succinctly. Do you think you could define it succinctly?
I think I could certainly point to some things, like some aspects and traits of what it means to be an American. Part of those are cultural attitudes, but I think when we talk about culture, a lot of the times we just talk about cultural products, and that's the issue, right? We talk, and admittedly, language is a cultural product that does actually have some significant weight behind it, because that's the way that we, have this interpersonal communication. You have to be able to understand each other in order to do anything. But there's things that run a lot deeper. And please let me finish this point, because whenever people talk about immigration, this is the issue. What they don't talk about are these like lower levels, like the bottom of the iceberg of culture, which are not just, the kind of holidays they celebrate and the foods they eat. They're the ways that they learn. They're the ways that people make jokes. They are their perceptions about the importance of punctuality. They are the idea of how important the elderly are in their society. And all of these things are not things that I think people are so willing to shed. Like if we were to have, I don't know, millions of Japanese people come over every single year, I'm sure that their attitudes surrounding like the importance of the elderly in their society would significantly start to shape what the overall cultural attitude in the United States is. I don't think people are as malleable as you make them out to be, but even if I were to agree with that, you've made the argument for cultural assimilation prior to immigration. You've already made that argument. That
I didn't make that argument. No, I do believe it. I do believe it in some sense. I do believe it in some sense. I think
we ought to believe it absolutely. It's like, why would you accept, like at the very minimum, somebody coming to the country ought to be able to pledge an allegiance to the country, which by the way, in the citizenship test that you have to take to become a U.S. citizen, the last question is about pledging allegiance to the country.
Could I do want to say
that even most Americans do anymore.
I do want to say that one of the most valuable American traits that I think like genuinely all Americans believe in, and it's like a huge cultural identity, is like anti-authoritarianism. Like genuinely chucking a middle finger to our president and being allowed to say it seems to be one of the most American traits that we possibly have, is being like full of contradictions, saying I hate everything about America, but I love this country. Like that to me is one of the most pure distillations of what it means to be an American. So I see people flipping off our flags, and I see Americans right there, personally.
Do you think that like maybe like the libertarians or the Tea Party people who are probably like flipping off the president because they think he's authoritarian are doing it for the same reasons that, these communities in LA who are waving the Mexican flag are doing it? Do you think that's
fucking don't step on me. Absolutely. ICE is
not really. They don't have to, though. This is like the benefit of free speech, right? Is that they don't have to be saying it for the same reason, right? The libertarians that are saying don't step on me might be having similar things. Some of the Mexicans probably are saying don't step on me because they want fucking due process, right? Whereas other people might be just saying that they're frustrated about the way that there is like wealth divide, and it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. There's a whole bunch of reasons as to why people are going to like use their voice to dissent against the government, and that's okay. They don't have to have the same positions. That's the benefit of being American.
I think a part of that issue, and this is the last thing I'll say, I'm glad you brought Doomer Nat up. This guy does actually know more than I do about economics, so maybe you guys can get into that. But the last thing I'll say is I guess those kind of cultural attitudes that you're talking about, I don't for a second believe that there's kind of this universality in the motives. And when I talk to people about immigration and what it means to be an American, they often cite that idea. It's like being an American is like being pro-freedom. Well, it's like, what if somebody comes to this country and they immigrate legally, but they don't hold any of those values? What if a ton of people who believe in a theocratic government go to the poll box and they vote because it's like totally legal to do so? Let's say there's a candidate that runs and he's like an autocrat. He's going to have this theocracy.
I can easily imagine that. Yes.
Oh, yeah. So let's say that happens. And let's say they legally vote in this person, and that person goes to do a ton of things that none of the founders of the country would have been in favor with. You are going to defend it because it had been done legally? It's like, I disagree with that. I don't think we ought to allow for, legal processes to completely destroy the country. The Constitution is good because it protects the Constitution.
Sure. I think any liberal would totally agree with you on this.
Not because it enables its own self-destruction.
This is the exact reason why most liberals are extremely oppositional to Trump right now, right? I think every single liberal, just because we say freedoms, it doesn't mean freedom's unfettered. This is obviously true, right? This is the classic covenant clause, right? We understand that one of the values of America as well is rule of law, right? But also that there are some like core principles like democracy that we tend to really like, right? And so I agree with you that like freedoms don't go all the way to the end and people just have to do whatever they want. The issue is that we have to be really specific about what the lines are of what we think is intolerable behavior, and that like we have to push back on with free speech, right? I think people asking for due process is not that line for me, because because due process is pretty codified in the Constitution. However, if you said, for example, we should get rid of voting or the president should have a third term, yeah, I'd have a much bigger issue with that because it feels anti-democratic inherently to me.
Real. Okay. So I think that's then where I'll leave off. I'll say that. Yeah. I agree that I think an allegiance to the cultural and the historic values of the country is important. I believe assimilation is important. And I think that when we talk about citizenship and what it means to be an American, allegiance and loyalty to the nation ought to be prioritized. And I think that we ought to be a lot stricter about some of those perhaps different cultural influences and the way that they are shaping the country. But I appreciate the conversation. Kyla, good to see you again. I'm glad you remember me. It's been a long time. I've been in hibernation in Argentina.
Thank you for being here, Kai.
Learning Spanish. Thank you, Doomernet. Thank you, Staxiums. You're actually really cool to talk to. I appreciate you also cutting it down on the swearing. I love that. Appreciate you humoring me there. Really, the big goat is just a little off grid. That guy's he was the best debater of the whole night. And we could never be together because of our disagreements on politics. It would be impossible for a long-term relationship. But I appreciate you anyway. And Mercedes, you're the best. Thank you guys. I love you. Adios.
Love you.
Hey, let's go.
Have a good sesh at the gym.
I'm gonna pick off where that guy left off, basically. But one thing I do want to talk about is the more economic consequences of immigration, if we wouldn't mind that. And then we could also get into the cultural impacts, because I do think there were some things with that discussion that were not particularly discussed enough. Basically, there were things mentioned that didn't get enough attention. But first things first, on the economic issue, I mean, do we agree here that bringing in, cheaper supplies of labor is going to bring down domestic wages? Are we going to agree to that or disagree with that?
Sorry, say that again. Cheaper labor,
right,
will bring down average wages.
Yeah. Or not maybe average wages, but definitely the people who are going to be competing with immigrants are going to see a reduction in their wages.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we can agree that's a negative side effect to immigration, is the fact that they will bring down wages.
Actually, I think that there is, now I'm not an economist, I want to agree, but I do think that the literature often cites that an increase in population also brings with it a velocity in currency, which can stabilize those wages a little bit more.
No, I think what you're saying here is that an increase in the supply of labor is also going to increase the demand for labor, and so
that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. There's a couple problems with that. Which is one is that a lot of the income that immigrants have, i.e. the demand, that's going to leave the local labor market because of how much of their income is going to go back to their home country, right? Around like 1/4 to 1/5 of the average immigrant income is going to leave local labor market and go to their home country. And a second thing here is that you got to understand something here, is that the asking rate of an immigrant is going to be less than a native-born worker. And the reason for that is just they're coming from poorer countries.
No, of course.
So what they're going to accept is going to be a lot lower for a native-born worker, right? And so thus you're going to see somewhat of a race to the bottom, basically, where you're increasing the competition for labor.
Temporarily, yes. Temporarily, this will absolutely occur. Yeah, of course, as you increase supply of labor, it's going to drive down wages to a certain point. This is part of why, minimum wage, for example, is erected by the government to somewhat safeguard against this. But this won't be forever, right? One of the benefits of also driving out a bunch of labor is, you can regulate how much labor comes in. This is why typically we have a certain amount that we let in and don't let in. And number two, you regulate what type of labor comes in as well, which is why you might have, for example, H-1Bs that become more protectionary, where we won't accept certain engineers of certain things because the engineers have lobbied well against the government to protect their jobs. Also, on top of that, yes, there will be a temporary wage drive down, but there will be an overall explosion of business because there's lower, cheaper wages. Small business owners can suddenly afford afford these wages and whatnot. And so you'll also see an explosion of businesses, and then typically you'll see a balancing out and a continual raising.
Yeah, so there's a couple things here. Number one, I don't think we're going to disagree that much that the H-1B visa program is something that's largely exploited by companies. I mean, the Economic Policy Institute has data on this. The top, I think it was, what are they called? Not S&P 500, but I think it might have been
500 is the top businesses.
Yeah, the top.
Sorry.
Okay, there were amongst it was massive companies in America, places like Tesla, Microsoft, etc. engaged in mass firing of native-born workers and then engaged in the mass hiring of H-1B visa workers. And the reason for that is because the median income that H-1B visas make, workers on H-1B visas make, is less than the median income in the sector that they're in. That's all shown by the Economic Policy Institute about their data on specifically H-1B visas. Now, to talk to you something more substantively about how there's going to be an explosion in businesses because wages are down. Yeah, I'm sorry. This just seems like a justification for inequality to a certain extent.
No, this is an explanation of how GDP works, right? Like American Immigration Council came out with a pretty massive data analysis that talked about how, like, yes, it will bring about a temporary drop, right? As Trump might say, short-term pain for long-term
Yeah, this is what I mean.
I'm sure you love that
It's
one.
inequality, right? Because what's happening here is that because labor costs are cheaper, that's going to increase the profit margins of the people that are hiring immigrants.
To an extent, but this would be assuming that we would all agree. Like, for example, I don't exactly agree with the current tax situation when it comes to like the top like earners of the government, right? So inequality to some degree, yes, it would, but like inequality in what way? Like you're just stating this like inequality is ontologically
Because-
evil, and therefore we
No,
can't.
no. First of all, yeah, I do think inequality is actually bad, right? And what I'm saying here is that what immigration is going to do is it will cause a redistribution of wealth from the bottom to the top, because the GDP growth that's happening with immigration, what it's doing is it's causing labor costs to go down, thus causing an increase of profit margins for people who already have tons of capital because they're the employers. That's what I'm saying here.
Even if I cite this, which I'm not sure if I'm willing to, couldn't it be the case that it would bring down prices and then we could rectify that on the government end?
No,
like we could essentially just tax. We could have higher tax, like marginal taxes, to ensure that inequality could be redistributed.
Right. So when it comes to okay, so there's a couple things here. Number one, when it comes to prices and wage drops, yeah, I don't. One thing that you can test to see if this is the case is like when a state passes a minimum wage law, and you see how prices would that be inflationary because there's a huge sharp increase in the cost of labor. That
Right.
doesn't happen. Right, there is no inflationary and unemployment impact due to the fact that there's a large increase of the minimum wage due to a law that's being passed. For example, California was I think it was the most recent example. They increased fast food minimum wage to like $28, $30, something to that effect. There was around an 18-20%, or maybe it was $22. It was something. It corresponded to around a 18% increase of wages, but there was only around a 2 to 3% increase of what's up?
1781. Certain healthcare workers have a minimum of 24, and I'm seeing hotel workers in the richest area are $20.
Maybe.
Okay, yeah, just to be clear, I was gonna say 22.
Maybe the nominal number I was wrong on, but the percentage increase of wages due to the pass of the minimum wage, that minimum wage hike, that was around 18 to 20%, and that only
If you could cite a source, because like now we're a little shifty on that because you were off on the nominal price. I think it's fair for us to be a little bit skeptical.
Oh, about what, the fast food minimum wage
About
thing?
the
Is that what you-
percentage increase, the percentage. Like
Okay,
he's saying,
yeah,
we're not
I'll
going to
be-
take your percentage.
If I close out, if I go on like Teacup and like get the
You know what
source, would that be
state
okay?
this happened in?
What'd you say?
You know what state this happened in?
California, it was the fast food. They increased the minimum wage for fast food workers in California.
I'll look up by percent.
Yeah, you can do that. Sure.
It's not coming up with a quick answer for you.
Never really does.
Okay, I don't care about this point that much. Why don't I zoom out? You say I granted you a fair bit of this, that H-1Bs are maybe being over abused by the S&P 500s, right? Let's say I just granted that, because I think that is a reasonable claim, although I would probably need to analyze it more to see if it's true that it's actually being abused and it's not being like utilized effectively. For example, if like their H-1Bs are filling in roles that they otherwise just like can't find a natural talent pool to fill. So I remain agnostic, but I'll grant it to you for the sake of argumentation. That doesn't necessarily like disentangle the overall GDP benefit of immigration holistically. While there are areas that you might be able to point to that I'd be like, yeah, we could probably change policy here a little bit. We could change policy here a little bit. That's not the same thing as saying immigration isn't good for like overall economic output of a country.
Do you know what the equation is for GDP?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't.
Right. Yeah, it's consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports, right? That's what GDP is. Okay, and so listen, when you just add in a whole bunch of people to an economy, right? Nominally, yeah, that is going to increase GDP because you have more people consuming, right? And so you're just adding more people into it. This is why with GDP.
Here's what I find frustrating about this argument. What metric would you like to use? I understand GDP is flawed. I agree GDP is flawed. But largely, any other metric that you're going to use to determine whether or not that's good or bad for the country is going to be largely in line with GDP. But if you have a different metric, I would love to hear it.
Well, that's why I was talking about wages, right? That's why I was talking about wages, is because there's a reason why GDP goes up due to immigration. And a big reason for that is because when immigrants come in, that causes wages to go down. And so, yes, there is an increase of GDP, but it's due to the increase of profit margins of already successful people. It's simply an inequality, and it's an impact of inequality of a redistribution of wealth from the bottom up, which is something I'm not in favor in.
So I have a second. I don't know. I'm going to check a couple sources on that, but I have a second point that I want to bring up. I have heard a lot of issues when it comes to H-1B visas, when it comes to the way that some immigrants who are only here on work visas can be taken advantage of, because essentially if you get fired, you get deported. So it's really easy to take advantage of them. Are you advocating for deportation, or would you advocate for just allowing them to be citizens?
I would like to see a mass deportation of illegal immigrants and then a moratorium on new entries into the country. I would like to see a complete halt in new people coming into the countries, and then a mass deportation process of people who do not have the correct, visas or any, people who are here illegally, basically.
Okay. Those mass deportations of, I don't know how many illegal immigrants there are in America estimated. Is it like 5 million or even more?
No, I think most people cite 12 million. I've seen conservatives say anywhere up to like 20, 30 million. I'm sure that's an overestimate, but.
Sure, yeah, I'm seeing most numbers around like 12 to 15. Do you think exporting 12 to 15 million people from this country, often in one fell swoop, because you're advocating to do that within the next 3-4 years, right? Like, especially.
No, I think no. I don't think I'm coming up here to just absolutely defend the Trump administration. That's not what I'm coming up here to do. I'm just coming up here to debate because y'all seem to be in favor of immigration. I'm not in favor of it.
Okay, one example that we could get into, you talked about the investing versus consumption, and you said, well, immigrants contribute to GDP through consumption. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's mostly the GDP increase that you're going to see from immigration. Yeah.
So why is it the case that it is about 40% of new businesses are immigrant-based?
What do you mean when you say they open up businesses? What type of businesses are you talking about?
The stats here that I'm looking at say that the largest contributor to billion-dollar investments in businesses are typically immigrants.
Where does that come from? What source is that?
Because
most immigrants aren't starting up businesses. The patent rate and then the self-employment rate of immigrants is around 12%, which is comparable to the native born. And then there's a huge unequal distribution, because you got to understand something here. When we say immigrants, there's no such thing as a country called immigratia or refugia, right? There's not just from one country.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you because now we're going down some weird shit. This is a weird way to run it away from this point. Okay, so 25.
No, I'm not running away from anything.
You're talking about refugia. I don't care. I don't care about the fantasy land that you jerk off to at the middle of the night. I'm not interested in that stuff. What I'm interested in talking about. Okay, so one of the things that I think is really important about immigrants is that they invest in new businesses. Another thing that's really interesting about immigrants is they typically pay more than their fair share in taxes. They tend to be some of the best contributors. Also, this wage driving, I just looked up sources to confirm because I don't want to speak out of my ass. So I'll read to you again. This is from Brookings Institute, which is fairly reputable.
I've read it. I have contentions with their study.
Okay. So in the short term, we see typically a 1 to 2% drop, particularly in low labor jobs, right? So jobs that don't require high levels of education. However, overall, it typically raises wages for high-skilled natives, has minimal neutral effects on average wages and increases wages for low workers over time by increasing demand and creating complementary jobs, right? It expands business overall. You have more workers, more people make new businesses, there's more job opportunities, businesses expand horizontally, they need new positions open, and vice versa, yada, 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 economy grows. So it's not just that like immigrants are showing up, getting food cards, laying around in hotels and buying McDonald's. It's that they're working at McDonald's, is that they might be the investor in starting a new McDonald's locally. They're going to start businesses around nearby. They're going to be paying their taxes because they're immigrants. They're legal immigrants, and they don't want to get deported for fucking up the law. In fact, immigrants tend to follow the law better than natural citizens, as I'm sure that you
All right,
know.
do you want me?
They
Can I
also-
respond now?
They
you've
also
gone
follow. They also follow tax law better. Sure, I can pause cooking you for now, and then you can respond, and then we'll keep going from there.
Sure. So one thing about the wage things, right, is as you said, there's a decrease for low skilled workers, but there's an increase of high skilled workers. The reason why that's the case is because I never made the claim that because most immigrants that come into the country are low skilled workers, right? And so obviously they're gonna lower the wages of the people they're competing with. There's not that many high skilled immigrants that are coming into the labor market that are going to be competing with other high school natives, right? So if you start increasing the number of immigrants that come into the country, you're going to see a decrease of wages in the people that they're competing with. What you just described to me, right? There's an increase of wages for higher skilled workers, but a decrease for lower skilled workers. Yeah, that's exactly what I just said. It causes a redistribution of wealth. People who are already making more money who are already making more money, right? Who are already doing well in society. They are going to benefit they're going to benefit from immigration due to the fact that there is a negative effect on the people who are already doing worse. It is a wealth redistribution from the bottom up. Now, going on to your point about opening up businesses and things
But
of that
this is
nature.
a criticism. This is not a criticism.
Hold on, wait,
of
no.
immigration.
You went
No,
on
this
for
is
like
not a criticism.
3 minutes.
The
You
issue is that
rambled
you're
and
not
yapped.
rebutting.
Let
I'm
me
not
respond.
rambling. The issue is that this isn't a criticism of immigration. This is a criticism of our tax system. And I would actually totally grant you that there are major issues with our tax system. I would 100% be behind you. But this
It's
is
not
not an argument
taxes.
against immigration. This is absolutely about taxes, because when you're talking about wealth redistribution, what you're talking about is taxes. The reality is that whether you have like immigrants or other low-wage workers, even if they're American born, the reality is that the way that the tax system is set up is that the inequality has been growing dramatically since about the 70s, right?
And
We
just
just
to be
know
clear-
this, and then exploded again after 2008. This is fundamentally a taxation issue, not an immigration issue. This
All right,
isn't a
you
reason
want
why
me
we
to-
look
can
at
I
immigrants
respond
and
now,
say, you
please?
can't
I did not interrupt you.
Right,
So
I'd like
please
to
don't
throw
interrupt me.
something
Show some
in.
respect. All right, what were you saying, Mr. Staxiums?
It's not just immigration, or sorry, it's not just taxation as well. It's also the way Social Security is set up, because illegal immigrants use Social Security cards that are for legal for legal citizens. They pay into the system and they can't pay out. So essentially,
I don't
all
agree
of
with
that
that.
money is getting withdrawn from illegal immigrants and paid towards Americans, which helps.
That's not how Social Security works.
Why
But
is that not how Social Security works?
yeah, because like, do you know what MMT is? Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Yeah, modern monetary theory. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's how we finance things, right? Your taxes don't finance social programs.
Okay, first off, I understand what you're saying, that essentially we tax it to delete it. The problem is
Exactly.
Wait, okay. I largely agree with you.
Okay.
But you're playing a semantic game here,
Yeah.
where essentially my Social Security taxes actually fund policies, and it's the future taxpayers who are paying towards Social Security.
No,
Okay,
that's not
fine. Under this semantic
I think he's
game,
talking
I
about
understand
bonds.
what
I
you're
think
saying,
he's
which is
talking about
that
like bonds. Just to be clear, I think he's talking about like government bonds. It's like government bonds and whatnot.
No,
Yeah.
What I'm saying is here that your taxes don't go into some account and then like when you retire.
I understand how Social Security works. I understand that it fuels
Okay.
the current U.S. economy. And
So
then
your
the
taxes aren't paying for it. That's the point. And that you
I
can
didn't clarify-
you can run a negative balance to it. That's the point. Is that you can deficit spend money into these accounts. You don't need taxes to fund it.
I don't understand how this is a criticism of my point that illegal immigrants.
You don't need taxation for it. Taxes don't fund it. That's
I
the
said
point.
this is in addition to the taxation issue that Kyle was bringing up. I was saying Social Security is also an issue.
Okay, I got like 6 points here to address. Okay, because she made other points.
Yeah.
I promise I'll be silent for like 10 minutes. However
All
long.
right, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. So anyways, yeah, about the stuff about wages, right? Yes, that does cause a wealth redistribution from the bottom up. And then you say, well, we can just fix this with taxes. No, you can't. I'm going to explain to you why you can't. Is because when you increase the number of immigrants into the country, that is going to compete. That is going to cause a competition from native-born workers with lower-skilled immigrants, or not lower-skilled, cheaper immigrants, okay? So if you continue to increase the amount of people coming into a country, that will perpetually put downward pressure on wages. If you continue to increase it, like, for example, someone mentioned H-1B visas. Those are usually in higher skilled jobs, right? That's usually in Silicon Valley, et cetera, things like that. Yeah, H-1B visas also cause a negative impact in the sectors that they go into, because H-1B visas get paid lower than the median income of their sector. So when H-1B visa, people on H-1B visas go into a sector, that causes a decrease of wages of people into that sector, right? It's all about who you're competing with. So and the reason why you see negative impacts from low-skilled workers but not high-skilled workers is just there's so much more low-skilled immigrants coming into the country compared to higher-skilled ones. If you started expanding immigration into higher-skilled and medium-skilled sectors, you would also see a decrease of wages in there. It's not just about tax policy. Furthermore, as the great Milton Friedman reminded us, you can't have a welfare state and also have immigration. Denmark, right? Because we all want some type of Nordic system. We want something like that. We want a larger expansion of the welfare state. You can't do that with immigration. We saw this in Denmark of how that worked out, because people who are lower skilled, which are predominantly immigrants, are predominantly people who benefit the most from the welfare state, are lower skilled. So when you bring in lower skilled people to a country that has a very expansive welfare state, that causes a lack of resources for the people who are already in that country, and thus there's an increase of taxes to pay for this, right? Do you see the point that I'm getting at here?
Yeah, but Doomer, they fixed this issue by essentially just phasing out benefits. So you had to be like a 5-year citizen, or at least that's definitely how New Zealand does it. I know I looked into their tax code.
Well, the way that Denmark fixed it is that there was net migration out of Denmark. They cracked down on immigrants.
But I'm saying another way to
decrease the amount of people into their country.
Another way to fix that issue is simply just phasing out benefits
for immigrants.
Yes, by essentially saying that they have to wait 3 years or 5 years until they get benefits from the tax system.
Yeah, Sweden did something like this, and what happened is that due to the fact that they limited benefits for immigrants, there was a flight of immigrants out of the country. The way you solve these things is just either you do things like self-deportation, or you just restrict the amount of people that's coming into your country. Now, the reason why I bring up Denmark and stuff like this is because when you bring up tax policy to fix the errors of economic inequality that's generated by immigration, and then you bring up, well, we can just, fix this by a larger welfare state and tax redistribution. Yeah, well, there's countries that already have systems like that, like Denmark and Norway and et cetera, and they experienced immigration. It was a huge negative drain on their welfare state, and they had to largely restrict it. So you can't really create this welfare state to address inequality and also have perpetual immigration. It's just not going to work. Now, thirdly, this is the last point I gotta address, is the point about immigrants finding businesses. There was a study about, and you also mentioned something about crime, which I also got to address. Just remember here, I'm not rambling. I'm just addressing all the points.
I know. I'm writing down your responses. If you see me typing, it's because I'm writing down like some key points that you've said.
All right.
I'm being quiet. I promised.
That's fine.
I just got excited. Okay, I love economics.
You're good. I like econ too. I'm just a regular Keynesian, post-Keynesian. But anyway, about crime. Yeah, I mean, well, the things about crime is that there is a minority in the United States that inflates the hell out of the national average of crime. If you look at, for example, just Hispanics, right, which is the vast majority of where immigrants come from, since the 1970s, the increase of the Hispanic population has contributed to around 50% of total U.S. population growth. They're the vast majority of immigrants who have come into the country. The Hispanic crime rate is roughly 2 times that of white people. It is just the case that Hispanic migration, which has just historically, since the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, been the majority of immigrants who have came into the country, that has caused an increase of the crime rate. Because in a counterfactual, if they didn't, it would be vastly majority white people, and that would have a lower crime rate. And then
hold on. That's extremely disingenuous. The distinction between illegal immigrants the distinction between illegal immigrants causing more crimes is countered against legal immigrants or legal residents. It's not Hispanics versus white people. The amount of Hispanics is negligent to this fact.
Hispanics are the immigrants, though.
Okay, what does that have to do with anything?
It's because they commit more crime than white people. And if they didn't come in here, white people would be around 80-90% of the population. Now they're like 57%.
Okay, but that doesn't have to do with anything because
It
they
does.
counter the stats versus illegal immigrants versus legal residents. Being Hispanic has nothing to do with anything. I don't know why you're bringing up Hispanics.
I don't think, you didn't follow the reason why. I explained why. Hispanics have been the majority of immigrants who have come into the country.
Right.
They have a lower, and they have a higher crime rate than the demographic that is the majority of the country. So bringing in Hispanics has caused an increase of the crime rate compared to a counterfactual where you didn't have massive Hispanic immigration since
wait, hold on.
1965.
You're just claiming that counterfactual that if Hispanic people weren't in this country, crime rate would be lower. But we also have to point out the fact that we would be more impoverished as a nation and also fewer people. Like there's so many different.
We wouldn't
stats
be more
that-
impoverished.
You just throwing that there would be less crime in this country without immigrants is like you have to consider like 20 different variables in that counterfactual because so many things are different. I don't know how plausible that is.
No, I wouldn't. It's very simple. Hispanics have around 2 times the crime rate of white people. Hispanics have been the majority of immigrants who have come into the country.
Do you have a source
Therefore,
for that?
I do.
First off, just to be clear, what he's going to pull up is not crime rate. I'm going to be really pedantic.
I was going to say crime rate isn't a thing. Crime rate is not.
Colloquially, we're usually talking about incarceration or arrest.
Correct.
That's what we're talking about.
Which obviously there's going to be a little bit of bias in there. Is that fair to say? A little bit of bias in there. Is that fair to say? That Hispanics are largely more targeted for crimes than their white counterparts.
I don't think that's true. No.
You don't think that's
probably believes the 1350 stat. Like,
well, no, incarceration
Hold on.
and arrest
You
data
disagree
matches within a
with
margin of error of the National Criminal Victim Survey. So unless you can explain for a reason why incarceration and arrest is matching people who are reporting the fact that they've been victimized, I don't understand how. Like, I don't know how you can explain that.
Clarify that one more time.
Yeah, so the national, do you know what like the NCVS is, the National Criminal Victim Survey?
No.
It's a survey of people who have been victimized, right, by a
Okay.
violent crime. Okay. And so the point is here, and this is a nationwide victim survey that's reported every year. The National Criminal Victim Survey usually matches arrest and incarceration data within the margin of error. So unless you're saying there's this bias in arrest and incarceration,
Wait, hold on. There could be a bias as well for victims to feel more frustrated with what's occurring when a brown person enacted it on it.
yeah,
rather than-
maybe,
And
right?
also something to point out as well, which is that white people will have white collar crimes, which are sometimes victimless, or at least the victims are a lot more nebulous because they're essentially determining the economy. So there's not one single victim who can report this.
Well, white collar crimes are just better than blue collar crimes. They cause less harm, right? Obviously.
what?
Better in what metric?
That white collar crimes cause less harms than violent crimes.
You think
violence? Are you
Wait,
talking
you
about
think
violence?
tax evasion by like some fucking billionaire it causes less harm than there's no way.
Then assault and rape and
Hold on. That's
Hold on. Just a
That's
pause.
so
Are you familiar with the Johnson & Johnson lawsuit that just kind of came through in about 2018? It was finally settled. Are you familiar with it? If you're not, that's okay. I'll just tell you about it.
I'm not.
Okay, so Johnson & Johnson is a health insurance company, but they also do health-related like procedures. So they did this really shitty thing in like 2000s where they bought a German patent for a hip replacement that was like a new and improved hip replacement. But they looked at it and they're like, man, rather than using surgical steel, which is required for the patent, we're going to be cheap and we're going to replace it with a type of surgical plastic. And it'll be totally fine. There won't be any problems. They didn't test it. They didn't have to because there was a loophole within the FDA that they took advantage of. And they started putting hips into all of these people. Hips, unfortunately, were garbage and people's bodies...
That caused like some type of infection or something like that, right?
Their body rotted from the inside out,
Right,
and most people
right.
had to be completely amputated from the hip down, right? And as a result of this, they had this massive, massive lawsuit. And they had to settle for about $380 million. $280 million was paid to the victims of this. And you want to know what's even crazier? As a result of that $380 million, that means that Johnson & Johnson still made over $1 billion from selling faulty hips. So
Or
I
I
don't know
don't
exactly what you mean by
disagree.
harm, right? The issue is that white collar crime, because the IRS is underfunded, is way harder to track. Harm is more like ambiguated because we're talking about things like income and people's like livelihood and their bodies being destroyed and their like livelihood being scammed out of them versus things like assault, which are very immediate and you can immediately see the effect and it's easy to track because it's concrete.
Right.
The
That's
idea
why
that, like,
that's
these
why
things are
the
like,
crime rate stuff isn't biased, because where the huge disparities of crimes are is amongst the crimes that are most easily solved, such as assault, grape, unaliving.
You think rape is easily solved?
Probably much easier
88%
than what she just suggested, like tax evasion and things like that. Yeah.
rape is incredibly hard to solve because it's
Compared
oftentimes
to tax evasion,
no,
what do you think
tax
harder?
evasion is easy to solve. We don't have
Yes.
the staffing for it because you guys always want to underfund the IRS because
Don't
nobody
say
does
you
that.
guys. Don't say I supported the
Sure.
the.
Did you vote for
the-
Trump?
No, I didn't vote.
Okay. You, all
Sure,
right, fair
not
enough.
you guys.
No,
All the
listen.
people that are mad at me in the chat. Okay.
Yeah,
How about
there would
that?
be.
The
Listen,
Republicans.
and grape
Mug.
would be easier to solve too if people actually paid attention to it, right?
No,
I
the
mean,
whole
I think
problem,
that there's
the
a
whole
real-
problem with rape, okay, beyond just the misogyny that goes on, which I'm sure we can all speak to, beyond all the systemic issues related to it, is it's fundamentally a he said, she said problem in
Correct.
like 70%
I
of
don't
cases,
disagree. I don't
which
disagree.
is extremely difficult to solve. So in the case of something like tax evasion, what you do is you look at numbers and dollars. It is just easier. It's actually more concrete.
But we don't have the
staff.
resources to solve it in mass because, I think we just fired a shit ton of IRS. Yeah, so it's hard to solve.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
And
we fired
what's
them.
much easier to solve would be something like unaliving, where you have a body, you have DNA evidence at the scene, things of that nature. It's much easier to solve violent crimes generally than white collar crimes, right?
I
So
agree, which is why the reason
Also,
we brought
I
it
just
up.
forgot because I'm not a TikToker, but make sure we're mindful of the TikTok.
yeah, I've been.
I don't know what it is,
using
but I think
I've been
it's-
using
You
the
guys are doing
lingo.
great. It hasn't dinged it or anything. You
Right,
guys-
but this is getting way off the point,
Okay,
right?
can I re-steer to actually going back to H-1Bs?
Sure.
Okay, so I wanted to check some of the stuff that you had said because I was like, I'm pretty sure you're wrong about the H-1Bs, but people say that it's like
About
really
what?
bad.
Which part?
So a lot of people say that it's basically replacing and like offering lower wages. So I looked at the Congressional Budget Office. I've also looked at the Census Gov report from April 2024, and I also look at the American Immigration Council. And what we see when it comes to H-1Bs, for example, is that they typically actually do not undercut because most of the jobs that they are going into, they actually get paid more because they're so like highly trained that they expect really competitive wages and a
I see
bonus
the
for coming over.
confusion.
This is absolutely true. I've looked
I
into
see
the
the
data
confusion.
for
I
this.
see the
Hold on,
confusion.
you gotta let me finish because I told you I wouldn't interrupt you, so you gotta let me cook a little bit too, okay? Okay. So H-1Bs are not undercutting like local staff, and in particularly some of the jobs that hire for them are STEM, and we are understaffed on STEM because we are undertrained on it. We don't have enough people with the like education required to, for example, be working in like semiconductor factories and developing like new like technologies and stuff and competing in some like the highest areas of competition. I cannot see this.
If someone could put me up on the big screen, so we can see what this says.
Wait, I don't think anyone was disagreeing with this. Kyla, did you disagree that people with H-1B visas are paid below median wages?
Yes, what you just said.
Yeah, data. I've just said data.
Yeah,
shows
yeah, that's
that
what I'm
they are
showing. I'm
offered
showing an
above-
article from the
above
Economic
industry
Policy.
averages. This is according to the CBO, the American Immigration Council, and the Census.gov report in April 2024.
Okay, and you say they're getting paid above what?
They typically get paid above industry averages because they have to be offered some sort of like incentive structure to move countries.
Just want to be clear.
I guess we just have contradictory data then,
No,
right?
no. Wait, hold on. If we get really clear about what that says median wages, which is median American wages, which is not industry average.
No, it's median. No, it's median wages inside of the sector.
Okay, I would have to see that. But
Well, that's what I'm showing. That's why I'm showing it.
Okay, well, can you just link it or something?
Yeah, let me see.
Who did this?
Yeah, can you say who did it as well? Because I'm citing
It's the
institutions.
Economic Policy Institute. They're generally a little bit left leaning.
Sorry, say that again. Economic.
The EPI, Economic Policy Institute.
Gotcha. Let me see if I can find it for you. What does the title say specifically?
migrant workers are paid lower than median wage. If you look that up and then put in Economic Policy Institute, you should be able to see it.
Yeah.
And then they released another one as well, where there was from I believe like 2022 to 2023, something of that nature. There was a massive firing amongst I don't remember if it was S&P 100 or Fortune. It was something, the huge companies. There was a massive firing of native workers, but then there was a massive hiring of workers who were on H-1B visas. And I can cite other more academically, not like things that are released by like NGOs and institutions and stuff like that, but more so along the lines of more literature along the lines of like, like Harvard professors, economists, things like that, who run metrics and things like that show like a crowding out effect of H-1B workers amongst people they're competing with.
Sure. And like, just so it's clear, I still have 3 sources that are competing against that. So this one is probably going to be too complicated to resolve in this Tech Talk Live. Maybe we can talk about it at another point.
Well, this is what Kai was getting at, right? You just throw sources around at each other. Because like I can give you 5 sources, you can show me 5 sources, and then we can just argue about which
Okay, then I'm going to push you on the actual thinking around this instead.
Okay.
So say I just granted you all of this. I just said, I'll just grant your sources and assume that we're underpaying migrants, we're treating them unfairly. That wouldn't overly shock me. That appeases my liberal mindset, okay, my woke virus. The issue that I have still is that this fundamentally isn't a thing where you look at immigrants and immigrate and whatnot and say they're the problem. What you do is you look at the companies that are mistreating the migrants, and you look at these policies and you analyze things. So you look at taxing policies for wealth redistribution, you look at hiring policies and worker safety, right? And you look at things like minimum wages and competitive wages, and you also policy on things like wage stagnation, right? These are the things that you do. You don't say immigrants can't come in here. What you say is you can't mistreat immigrants, right?
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with you that much, right? The problem is that immigration is one of the leading ways that leads to a decrease of labor's relationship to capital, right? Because when you bring in so much more supply of labor, that it increases competition amongst labor for capital, and thus you're increasing capital's relationship, its bargaining power that it has over wages. Can you still hear me?
You got a hum in the background.
I'm outside. There's like a mosquito truck coming right now. That's why I started yelling. But anyways, back to the point is that due to that, when you restrict migration, what you're doing here is you're literally stopping one of the biggest ways that companies exploit workers, which is bring in cheaper supplies of workers, right? That's why I'm with tariffs too. It's because what free trade does is it increases the supply of extremely cheap labor. And that's when you slap on a tariff and things like that, you're making the access to cheap labor so much more expensive because you're making it more expensive to import goods and offshore jobs.
Really quickly on the violent crime statistic thing, I'm actually looking at that right now. Let me see. Is this actually violent crime? Yeah. Incidents. Hispanic people are actually like proportionately committing crime to their portion of the population. Like
Does that refute what I said?
Yes, you said that they're committing more crimes than I think white people. No.
Yeah, but they are.
Where's that number?
Because white people are under. Yeah,
right now.
It's very easy to synthesize. Yeah, I can give you that, but it's very easy to synthesize these two things, right? You said Hispanic people are proportionately represented the amount of violent crimes they commit. Then I said they commit more crimes than white people per capita. It's because white people are underrepresented in violent crimes. That's how you can very easily synthesize those two things, right?
Where? How do you make the argument for that, please?
Okay, if one group is proportionally represented, and then another group is proportionately unrepresented,
I'm asking
that
you,
means per capita,
that they're not. What is the argument that white people are overrepresented?
they would be underrepresented.
You said they were overrepresented. Okay, well,
I said white people are underrepresented, and then Hispanic people per capita commit more violent crimes than they do.
Okay, I'm not seeing that. Where is that in the document? Like what?
Yeah, here. What are you looking at?
What is
You're looking at like FBI table, whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, let me go grab this real quick.
Page 12 of 36. Hispanic people, 18% of their population, 17.5% of violent incidents. And they show you the standard deviation, or like the margin of errors or whatever. So, I mean, I don't suspect that there's a huge difference in margin of error between the two. Unless you can prove that.
Link in the chat.
Tell me.
Well,
Okay.
I have the criminal victimization 2023 report.
Also, I have an update on your study because I got a chance to look through it and I understand the massive methodological error that's in your study. So we can get back to that after. The one that you sent us.
Oh, the EPI one?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
But deal with Anna first. I just want you to know your source kind of sucks.
Okay.
And I have a reason why. I'm not just going to say it sucks and then give you another source.
Not very well. I mean, you can crop the image. I'm just asking, okay, like, where in the report is that 2021? I'm looking at 2023. Can you pull up the 2023 one?
Are we looking at arrests?
And,
That was incarceration rate. Are we looking at incarceration rate or arrests?
Let me see. Let me double check. Oh, where did that page go? Oh, it was 20. Oh, that's not right.
Let's go. I'm getting roses. I'm coin mogging all of you.
I mean, getting coin mogged by like racist is, I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like I'm mogging everyone also in this line of dialogue as well.
Oh, Beaver girl.
I'm being for real, just like what happened to Destiny.
These are, I think these are reports by victims. I want to say that that's what it is.
Oh, we're looking at the National Crime Victim Survey?
National Crime Victimization Survey, yes.
Okay, let me look at this.
Yep. I think it was, table 11, page
23? 2023?
Yes. Table 11, page 12. So they're proportionately represented in the prison population, or as far as violent crime incident reports. Table 11. Oh, it says September 2024. I think that probably is when it was published. That would make sense. Okay, it even says here the share of violent incidents involving white or Hispanic offenders was lower than the share of white or Hispanic persons in the population. So, like, white people and Hispanic people are less likely to commit crimes. Let's go. If we want to talk per capita, bring up per capita.
That per percentage.
No, I know that. I'm talking to this person in the comments who says terrified of per capita. We're looking at per capita.
For age?
Yeah, idiot.
It's over 12.
No, that's not what I'm that's not what I'm asking. So the reason why it's important that we account for age here is because younger people are less likely to commit crimes, right?
Okay.
Or sorry, they're more likely to commit crimes. Younger people are more likely to commit crimes, and immigrants, which is a bulk of what Hispanic people are going to be older than the population that generally commit crimes.
You also
Well, it doesn't break down the.
You also didn't account for what college.
That's why I brought
they
up
went
the
to,
prison
and
population,
The college
because it
that they
brought
went to is really going to make a marker on how much crime they commit.
Wait, what it is?
I'm saying we can add as many variables to this data, like to really hone in on it, and just the fact that a study isn't necessarily the biggest critique of it.
Well, that's why I brought up the numbers I brought up, which was the like a percentage of the prison population, because it broke it down by ethnicity and by age. She saw that Hispanics were pretty overrepresented in it.
Wait, is anyone? Maybe I'm.
Are you looking for a?
Here we go.
This is still the 2021 one. Are you able to look at the 2023?
Let me see. I mean, the trends in general crime haven't changed since 2021 to 2023, generally, except it's gone down. So I don't really see.
I'm not going to speak for Kyla or Ann, but I will absolutely concede that Hispanics, on average, are in jail disproportionately, and also that H-1B visas get paid less than market wages. That feels extremely intuitive to me, and also doesn't change my position necessarily. Kyla's obviously going to disagree.
Yeah, So the issue with that study that he cited is that so when you apply for an H-1B, there's different levels. There's 4 levels from my understanding of an H-1B. There might be more, but 4 are the main ones that we talk about. Level 1 or level 2 are kind of the most important, because level 1 is going to be like entry level, whereas level 2 and up are all going to be like journey level qualifications, masters, and 3 and 4 are going to just be higher levels of qualifications. And the EPI study is looking at promised wages, and it's lumping together both entry level and promised wages of like qualified. So when we're talking about the H-1B and the high skill worker, we're actually only talking about level 2 H-1Bs, whereas this study that he's citing is lumping together 1s and 2s. So it's already a bit of a misnomer. When we actually look at the data, so I'm getting this data now from Boundless and from the American Immigration Council again, and from the USCIS government, just to kind of confirm some of these things. Typically, H-1B salaries, particularly if they're in the LCA level 2, they're actually paid about $108,000 on average, and are occupying the top 10% of all U.S. wages.
Wait. Repeat that last part.
They're paid, which one? The 90th percentile? They're in the
No.
top
You said their average income is what?
At the level 2, their average income is $108,000.
And that's compared to what?
The U.S. median worker.
Yeah, but we're
overall is
not talking about the U.S. median worker. We're concerned with specifically the median income of the sectors that we're going into.
Sure. So here's the issue. If you can find the data, I can't. So the issue that we're having is level 2 is all jobs that require some level of education, and we can analyze these because they're immigrants. It's going to be a lot harder to get that data for the naturalized level 2 income average equivalent.
You can get micro level data on this stuff. You can just look like, okay, which sector's percentage of H-1B visas, and then you can go into, okay, what is the median salary of that sector compared to the median salary of people on H-1B visas in that sector.
Right. So the reason why they're paying them so much and often paying them like equal or competitive wages is because of we actually have a major labor crisis. We have yes, we do.
Definitely not
You're
tech
just wrong
either.
about that.
I'm not.
Tech is the biggest area of a labor crisis. I believe
the tech sector's in recession right now.
We had 9.8 million empty jobs and only 5.8 million people unemployed. That didn't have a job.
Tech is
and
in recession right now. There's not a high demand for tech workers. It literally can't be in a shortage when there's barely a demand for tech workers. And also,
we're saying the same thing. You're saying that there's not enough jobs, and Kyle is saying there's a bunch of unemployed people. Those are in tandem with each other. You guys are.
No, she said there's a
recession. The opposite.
She's saying there is a shortage of workers.
Jobs. There's too many. Yes, there is.
She's saying I don't agree.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm looking at the data. I don't have the 2025 data because it's not out yet. Just to be clear, we're waiting to see how much the tariffs have fucking nuked the labor department. However, if we're looking, they're terrible. And if you're a Canadian, you should hate them. Just to be clear, there's no world that you're advocating for any of this.
Wait, why are you pro-tariff?
Because I don't agree with free trade.
Why?
It's nonsense.
Well, just to be clear,
awesome argument.
Please
clarify why.
Can you justify comparative advantage? Go ahead.
Wait, but just to be clear, he actually disagrees with the way that Trump has implemented tariffs.
Yeah, that's also true.
Right.
Okay, I'll even take you on this one. Okay, if you look at comparative advantage from 2018 tariffs on the aluminum industry, that's a really good example of tariffs that we employed to try to basically boost up our aluminum and steel industry to help them compete distinctly against Canadian exports. So we tariffed the fuck out of Canadian exports, which just made Canada hate us, by the way. And what we saw is that it led to a shrinkage of the aluminum and steel industry because we don't actually make raw aluminum and steel. We make finished products like cutlery. This is part of why the GDP is so high, is because we have lots of finished products that end up in America. We finish things. We don't start things. We don't do raws. That's more like Canada and Mexico, right? So even if you're talking about like this principle didn't bear out in 2018. It didn't bear out with the
comparative advantage has never bared out because it's complete nonsense. But
then why did you cite it as a good reason for tariffs?
No, I say because the underlying logic of free trade is comparative advantage, and I'm saying comparative advantage is nonsense. That's why you need tariffs. Now, if you want to talk about steel and aluminum, sure, we definitely can. I mean, I'm going to cite the EPI again. I can cite a couple of more things too, but there generally was not an increase of the price of steel and aluminum products.
I didn't say that it was. I said that there was a shrinkage. So when we did tariffs on steel and aluminum, and we were using tariffs as a protectionary clause, which is what I thought you meant when you were talking about like the other thing. So I apologize for misunderstanding you. When we do protectionary tariffs, what we see is that they don't protect anything, and they typically shrink the industry. So while I would probably just agree, I don't think we overall saw a change in the finalized cost of aluminum. Like the consumer didn't end up paying more. What happened instead is that the aluminum and steel industry in America shrunk.
That's not true. There was a boost. No, there was a boost of employment in these two industries. There was a boost in amount of exports coming from them. There was an increase in the production like the production, but I don't care that much about that.
Wait,
I care.
That's insane. If the cost of the products that were finalized didn't go up, but the production cost did, that means they are net overall being harmed by the policy.
Yeah, they're making. Yeah,
and that
I think
will
it's
lead
okay.
to layoffs.
I think no, it didn't. No, it didn't. There was an increase of employment.
Maybe
I
they
don't
magically
care.
didn't.
I don't care.
First of all,
Companies
I
are
don't
making
believe
less
you.
money.
I
don't care
because
that
it doesn't
companies
pass
are
the
making
sniff
less
test. I don't know why
money.
you're yelling at me. I don't know why you're yelling at me.
You got
I
really
care when
close
they make
to the
less
mic.
money. I make no, my mic is in my ears.
Oh, you
I'm
got
getting
close to the camera.
I know, I'm very scary. Sorry to intimidate you there.
No,
so
you're
much.
good looking. It was all right.
Okay, thank you. Well, at least pretty privilege wins again. What I'm saying is that if there was a drop in wages in like output, the same output at the same cost, and it was more expensive to make, what that led to, it didn't lead to the CEOs taking less money. It led to them firing their staff.
No,
That's
no,
what it led to.
no. They aided in profit margins. They did not fire anybody. I'm promising you this, and I know this because exports of these products went up. They were producing more than we were taking in. Okay, they aided into profit margins, just like how most companies do when there is somewhat of a temporary random shock in supply chains. They aided in profit margins. I can cite some data on this. I don't care to argue about tariffs that much right now. I would like to stick to immigration, but yeah, tariffs are a W.
Tariffs are terrible. They're economically destructive, and this is why when they release the wage report, nobody's going to be happy.
Do you only
disagree
disagree with the way that Trump implemented tariffs because he did so on things that Americans can't create, like things like bananas or lumber?
Well, no, I disagree. So if you're gonna do tariffs, you got to do kind of like what Biden did, and also subsidize domestic industry. You can't cut a bunch of spending, right? Like how Trump completely gutted Biden's subsidies with like the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. You can't start cutting spending to domestic industries and then also make it more expensive to get imports. You have to subsidize domestic industries to make it attractive for people to come here, and also limit off the competition that people from cheaper.
So why are you against specialization?
I'm not against specialization, but I don't think specialization is the correct way to grow. I don't think just because I don't think
you think you'd rather just be good at 1,000 things, just like minimally. Than
well, no, it
one
just
thing
matters.
maximally?
It just matters what you're good in, right? So, like if we, yeah,
Which
exactly.
We're exceptionally good at tech development. And we're terrible at things like raw mineral mining.
Well, okay, I'll give an example, right? So, like it's a huge national security threat that like 95% of our semiconductor chips come from Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think that we can't.
Yeah. Which is why it's a super good idea that we fucking nerfed like half of our energy sectors. Good job, guys. We definitely don't need that. Also nerfed data center spending on the latest BBB.
Well, he completely gutted the CHIPS Act spending. Like he completely
also
gutted
fucking
it.
stupid, by the way.
Yeah, that's really dumb. But I don't know where to go from here. I guess we can keep talking about immigration. I mean, listen, the point here that I'm going to make is I can cite a couple studies about this, but And H-1B visas, like, yeah, like they're not good. I mean, they're just not good. They called out.
That's just not true. Again,
It is.
there are probably specific situations that you'll be able to cite. Like, I wouldn't be overly shocked to discover antisocial Elon Musk is also being antisocial with migrants. However, what?
He's the biggest one. Tesla fires a shit ton of people and then hires a bunch of cheap H-1B visa workers.
Which is why I said, even if I granted you this, although the data isn't really supporting you for everything that I'm looking into, even if I granted this, the issue is not H-1Bs by themselves. The issue is the system that they're operating in. We shouldn't be saying, don't allow H-1Bs in. We need them. We need them a lot. There is
There is
a labor
last
shortage.
thing we need.
There is a labor shortage in highly educated, highly qualified. It's just true. Americans aren't getting educated. They can't afford their education, and they're fucking stupid. They can't fill the role. This is why brain drain of immigrants has been like one of the #1 fiscal policies of America. We did it in World War II with all of the Jews. We pulled them over here. We do it with Canada all of the time.
Oh,
we
yeah,
do
I'm
this
sure
with
that's
every
why they
single
came
nation.
here.
Yes, brain drain is essential to our economy. It's something that we fundamentally value in
it's
America.
not.
And
No,
while I
it's
would
not.
agree that abusing migrants is bad, this doesn't make the immigration policy bad. It means that you have to look, for example, like Biden did, and try to figure out ways to improve quality of life for H-1B visa holders, not to just get rid of them, because there is a severe labor shortage. That is just true. I'm looking at the data.
It's not.
Maybe
No,
2020.
there's not a severe. Okay, listen.
There is.
Having a
I'm
labor
looking
shortage.
at the data right now.
Having
I'm
a
looking at
labor
it right now.
shortage. Having a labor shortage is a good thing. Okay, and I'm fixing to explain why. It's because when what
Employers don't have enough power yet. All right, yeah, go ahead.
No, that's the point. That's the point is when there's surpluses of labor and there's a very loose labor market that increases competition amongst labor, increasing capital's relationship to them, okay? When you have a very tight labor market like we saw right after COVID, there was a massive increase of real wages, right? Because of how tight the labor market actually was.
Hold on. The reason why real wages...
Hold on. Plus, you got to be very specific when you say there's, this million, hundreds of millions of jobs in the country that are jobless, and then there's 100 millions, we don't have that many people. Well, here's the problem: is you're not talking about the quality of those jobs, right? So, it's called the Ludwig Institute, and they constructed a metric called how many people are functionally unemployed, right? What they did was, instead of just looking at like the 4% of people who are inside of the labor market but don't have a job, what you do is if you take, because so much, this is Trump was boasting about the June job release. It was there was like a growth of around 147,000 jobs, right? The problem is the massive growth of those jobs were in jobs that were part-time. They paid less than median wage. If you looked at the people who make, as a yearly salary, like less than 20,000, people who only work part-time jobs, people who have fallen out of the labor market, who are above working age, and then the 4% of the population who are inside of the labor market and don't have a job, that would make up around a fourth of the population. There is a huge supply of labor that we're just not tapping into. People should be getting paid more money. They should be getting paid more money.
Okay,
That's simple.
again, I'm just telling you, I have checked now 2 other sources from other major sources of data. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the site that I'm on right now, but there's multiple people citing this as of May 2025. I found new data on this. And in the cases of professional, business services, and financial activity specifically, and tech, just so it's clear, professional includes the tech industries, there is only 40% of available workers, leaving 60% of the job roles unfilled. There is a massive labor shortage. This is something that is talked about regularly by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I can find the other sources that I was looking at before. What is this one called? National Foundation for American Policy. But the reality is that there is a labor crisis. This just exists. And H-1Bs are one of the ways that we have always solved this. I would argue a better way to solve this long term would be make universities affordable and make them efficient. That would be a really good thing to do for the
Right.
Americans.
So
And overall make you guys fucking literate, because I'm shocked at the level of can't follow their own thoughts, the conclusions, and read.
Are you saying I can't read?
Well, I hope you can. It seems like you are. I'm saying the average American can't, right? But apparently you can't, actually. Wait, you're the one that I've been looking at multiple sources saying that there's a labor shortage, and you're like, nah, I'm like, there is. And
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about
like,
tech.
did you
Let's
not
talk
even
about
Google?
tech.
Did you not even like try typing it in? You were just like,
Let's
no.
talk.
You typed it in.
Let's
You're
talk.
like, these
Okay,
pictures
stop
are
with the yap.
not
Stop with
making
the yap.
sense to
Stop with the yap. Stop with the yap. Stop with the yap. Let's stop with the yap. So first of all, there's a massive recession in tech, right? That's just the case, right? There's been around a 10% decrease in people who are employed by it. There's like a literal recession in tech. Okay, there's not that much demand for tech workers. This probably is attributable to a couple different things. But let's talk about your solution, which is you mentioned a bunch, and I don't disagree here. I think college should be free. I think we should cancel student loan debt, things of that
Okay,
nature.
just square the circle for me. If there's a recession in tech, but the latest studies from May 2025 says that there is still a labor shortage in tech, is just one of them lying? Or is it possible that these two things could be mutually true at the same time?
Yeah, but when you say labor shortage, that's referring to something that's like incredibly specific, right?
Yep,
and so if
I'm
there's
being specific.
right,
Yep,
so if there's a
is it
lack of
possible that
demand,
these
if
two
there
things
is a
can
lack
co-occur?
of demand, bro, if there's a lack of demand for jobs, right, for that given job, then like there's not going to be that, like the labor market can't be that tight for that job.
The U.S.
because
Chamber of
there's a massive
Commerce is
decline
just
in
lying.
demand.
They're-
No, I'm not
they-
saying they're
they're
lying, but
crap.
I think H1. Well, hold on now.
Why
Your
didn't they think of
solution-
the tech recession, foreheads?
This is, dude. I'm not making up a tech recession. This is like
I didn't
very
say you
common
are.
knowledge.
I said these things are not mutually exclusive.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's not a rebuttal.
Okay. So let me talk about your solution, right? Because there is I don't really think there's that much of a shortage in tech, because I think the tech sector is massively fixing to get automated. But either way, let's talk about your solution to, just bring in a bunch of immigrants to do the job. H-1B visas. Yeah, H-1B visas calls out a crowding out effect, okay? For every one H-1B visa that's hired, there's about a 1.5 decrease in native-born workers in tech that are hired. I can cite a study for that if you need me to. That to go on that you mentioned like professional jobs. I think there's a pretty big shortage in doctors, right? There's a huge shortage in doctors. But a big reason why for that is that we have put this type of self-restriction on the supply of doctors because there's a huge cap of people who can graduate med school. Right. That's why, like, this is something that I think his name's Mecca Urfer, and he's an economist. He wrote a whole article about it, YIMBYs for doctors.
They like basically like
So even
the falsified scarcity. Yes, I know about the falsified scarcity.
Right, so
well,
there's
not the
ways-
falsified, the like manufactured scarcity.
if there's labor shortages in specific sectors, right, which I don't really disagree that there is. I think there's ways to get around this without just bringing in more people, because that causes a crowding out, specifically when it comes to H-1B visas. Now, to address just one more thing, because I don't think you heard what I said. When you talk about the amount of unemployed, because they say we're at full employment, it's around 4%. We've been as low as 3.5% in the last decade. That the growth of those jobs are in shitty jobs. They're in part-time jobs. They're in job. Yes, they are. Okay. There's an institute called the Ludwig Institute, and they constructed a metric called functional unemployment. And that includes people who are get paid less, around $20,000 or less, so roughly around poverty. People who only work part time, and then the people who are unemployed, and people who are of working age that have completely dropped out of the labor market. And that constitutes roughly around 1/4 of the population, around 24% of the population. There is a source of labor, right, that we could afford to pay much higher wages in. The labor market is not as tight as you think it is. We could limit the supply of labor and increase the amount of wages, and you would see living standards increase, and you would see employment in jobs that pay higher than the median income, because employers would be forced to increase their wages to attract more people to these jobs.
The issue wasn't attracting people to these jobs. The issue was finding qualified people enough to even do the job, right? So I looked specifically in the professional field, then I broke it into tech. So the areas of tech that are having the highest issues in finding and supplying enough jobs, so they use H-1Bs, is AI, shocker, machine learning, shocker, automation, cybersecurity, cloud computing, and systems architecture. Now, the reason why they're so in demand is because you will become outdated in your technical skills within 2.5 years of being out of industry. So the turnaround time, you have to be so tight between being refreshed. And the reality is that there is just not enough Americans that are qualified enough in these areas and industries to fill all of the roles, because these especially things like AI and cybersecurity, are some of the most explosive industries, not just at a private sector, but also at a governmental sector, like the military, right? The military is diving like very heavily into cybersecurity right now because it's one of the like most common forms of Cold War warfare. We don't have the labor right now. And so I am all for all these policies where we train up Americans and we make education more accessible. I'm the lib. Like, I'm of course for these things. I want people to be educated. I want higher quality of life. The issue is that right now the power still fundamentally is going to be in actually right now the power is oftentimes in the worker. They can negotiate better wages. The issue is that a lot of workers don't think that they can, right? And so one of the things that you have to do with the H-1B process, for example, is just negotiate it so that they can't break certain policies. So for example, the stated minimum payment that they get on their LAC application can't be below $20,000 because a lot of times they state a much lower amount on their application than what they'll actually end up paying, in part to kind of like allow them like the largest flexibility of wage negotiation. And so doing little bands like this, Biden had a whole bunch of policies that he wanted to do, like prevailing wage requirements, making sure that the application process is like direct and less time consuming and easier to actually process through so we can process all these applications faster, right? Like there's a whole bunch of policy changes that were suggested to improve the life of the immigrants. I'm not opposed to any of these things, but I'm also going to tell you, we do need them.
Put me
We
on
need
the
immigrants,
big
and immigrants are
screen.
good.
Someone put me on the big screen.
As long as you don't cam up.
I'm already cammed up.
Okay, buddy.
No, I have like a study in the background. Are you? No, I'm not fixing to turn my camera to show my face. I don't want like a tsunami to happen.
What in the hell? I need you to stop because Glock posted that video of you, and I was like, bro, it filtered my comment. I said, bro, he looks scary.
I saw what you said, and I did, and I looked really good actually. But anyway,
Your face almost appeared on screen.
I'm a good looking.
Just go like this. Just come a little closer, okay?
Hold on, you got to read. Hold on. Get
I'll
the
only
fuck.
read it if you show your face, okay? No face, no space.
Is she flirting with me?
Oh,
No.
hell no.
This is what I said to everyone. No face, no space.
Oh, hell no.
And anyways, hold on. Just to be clear, winning one additional H-1B visa crowds out about 1.5 other workers. So the point is that there's a crowding out effect from H-1B visas. So even if I grant all of this shit about you might not be able to see it because we're all
Yeah, I'm just trying to Google it. The effects. Go ahead.
of high-skilled immigration policy on firms.
Has it
visa.
also factored in the secondary effect of higher demand in the area?
What do you mean?
I mean that it will create more jobs if there are more people living in that area because they'll demand more things.
No, I don't think that's how the labor market works. I don't think that's the case. But even if it does, if they demand more
You don't think
things,
more people includes higher demand?
not in a way that will mediate the loss of demand from the
I'm
decrease.
not saying
in
it'll
wages.
mediate it. I'm saying, does your study account for it?
I don't even know how could you account for something like that.
Well, I don't know exactly how you would even. I'm not even sure how you would get the 1.5 number of the crowding out effect. Like, how do you stipulate? Is it the amount of white American or the amount of native born Americans beforehand that had jobs and then afterward? I don't even know how you calculate.
Literally, yeah. But also here, just to be clear here, there could be an increase of demand from immigration, right? That could employ more supply, like more shocks of labor, but that's gonna easily result into still a reduction in wages because you got to understand these would be higher skilled people because they're being displaced due to the fact that their firm has won an H-1B visa lottery. Even if there was an increase of demand for labor, that's going to be in much lower skilled firms, which is going to result
I get that
in
you're
a reduction
saying
in
it, but I'm
wages.
wondering if your study accounts for it, which it sounds like it doesn't because you haven't answered in the affirmative.
Yeah, but we're not talking about like the direct. Yeah, kind of. I have been up here for a little long time, but the point is that if there is some type of secondary spillover effect due to the increase of demand for labor, that's not going to be felt in the tech industry because there's not an increase of demand for tech workers due to the fact that there was one firm. These firms won an H-1B visa lottery, and now there's more immigrants working in their firm. All right, they're wanting someone new. I'm gonna drop down from this. This was a good conversation. I think I was a good faith linear interlocutor. Yeah. One more. I got one question though, real quick. When's the next? When are y'all going on tour next?
July 12th. What a great opportunity, Mercedes. Could you tell us about the upcoming?
Wow! Holy shit, man! Sorry,
You're welcome.
I had to eat my pizza. I didn't want it to get cold. Okay, so yeah, we have July 11th, 12th, and 13th. We'll be in Tampa. Specifically, you can come see us on the 12th. We'll be debating MAGA, so it'll be fun. You can catch us there. We'll be going on tour indefinitely, so we're just gonna keep following.
Is there any place close to Mississippi y'all can come to?
We'll probably make our rounds there. Our job is to monopolize as crazy as possible on these college campuses with our chapters and teach these people to combat the Kirkster, and then hopefully.
Good. I wanna meet and publicly debate and debates.
Oh, hell no. No, I was just about to say, Mercedes, let me know when we go so I can skip that one.
I'm going to publicly debate and debates, right? Because like she got massively embarrassed by Andrew Wilson, so it's going to be that like times 2.
Cringe.
I'm playing.
That faith debater was so epic. He literally never answered a question and
no,
just
he was horrible.
Bad
He was
faith debater.
horrible.
Andrew Wilson, I'm gonna say that Andrew Wilson sucks really hard, but he did do something that I laughed at. The only thing he ever did that I laughed at was he was on a panel with Piers Morgan and Parker and whatever, and there was a woke moment, and Andrew Wilson was making fun and was like, that was funny. Other than that, though,
sounds like that was so embarrassing.
That
was funny when Anne asked him what was what did you add, like a comparative counterfactual account of harm, and you were like, do you know what that means? He was like, no, I don't know what that means.
Well, the funny part was he continued the conversation as if he knew what it meant. That was like the part that like mind fucked me, was like we had been talking about some topic or something, and he just like kept talking about it as if he knew what it meant, and I was like, do you actually know what that means? And he was like, no, why don't you explain it to me?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
hey,
I'm a hop off. It was nice talking to you.
Bye, buddy.
See you
have
later.
a blessed night.
You too. God bless. Become Catholic.
I'm
Oh,
Christian,
hell no.
but it's okay.
I will not. I'm so serious. Let me know when we make that stop, because I'll skip that one. I'll sit that one out.
Okay, no, you're not. You're coming in. I'm swear to
hell
God.
no.
You're gonna come on every stop. I'm just gonna make sure of it. I fucking love your energy. Do we have anyone who wants to debate in the chat? Who is MAGA? We're in honor of Anne, we are taking the radical left as well to debate.
What did I do?
I just had to do that because I wanted to hear your response.
Like, wait a second.
Sorry, you're just funny. Yeah, if you want to debate, request up in the box. We're taking all sides at this point. I am interested, Kyla. You're one of those people who I'd be interested in watching talk to some of these like online crazy TikTokers, because it was funny. I was like, "Yo, send me a collab," and the first collab you sent me was of you being like, fuck your goddamn, what do they call them? Your trigger warnings. Fuck your goddamn trigger warnings. My audience, because I haven't like, they're in the midst of training right now. They're like, bro, what the fuck is that? And I'm like,
she loves grape. She wants to essay women. You're like, guys.
I'm like, the based queen came and blessed my page, so you guys are gonna love it. Okay, good shit. So if you want to debate, just hop up in the request box. Let me look. We need to have like a question prompt. I think if we had a question, we need like triggering questions on the back.
Or statements.
Yeah, triggering statements. Trigger
Trump
warnings.
sucks.
Trigger warnings suck. Is that a good one? Is that too based? I don't think it's too based.
It might not be spicy enough. I don't know how many people will like come in to fight for the right for trigger warnings. I feel like to do that, you have to come in and be like, I am soy. I eat Play-Doh, and I hold my mommy's hand across the road. Like I feel like you have to do all those things before you can come in and debate that.
If you put if you put trigger warning suck and then it's not all men, if you put a prompt up, we'd have like 400 people in this room. They'd be screaming.
It's not all men is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Anne, do you want to make an it's not all men one?
Oh yeah, I like that one.
And then also put on there, Kyla, what is a controversial thing to put on there?
God, putting me on the spot.
What is a woman?
No, holy shit.
What is a what? What is a woman? Stactium's coming in hot. Oh my god.
If Staxiums wants to have Loki's
I'd
wager
love
for the
to.
next 2 hours,
That's my favorite
power to
topic.
him. Okay, go for it.
Well, you get like super lefty based pilled, and you realize that women don't exist.
I'll fight Anne on gender abolitionism, okay?
Wait, no, I can't say that on live.
You just make one with and then have a it's not all men. Oh, that'll get hot. That'll get hot. There will be a lot of people.
Or just Donald Trump is a psycho.
That's true. Oh, they hate the Trump is a threat to democracy one.
It's pretty good.
That one.
It's gonna. This is funny. Trump is a threat to democracy, and then it's not all men. People are gonna be like so confused.
On the same. Oh, you mean on the same background?
Oh no, yeah. Let's get a soy ultra one, a soy
Okay.
level ultra up here. You can even title it like maybe you can put soy level ultra and then like maybe one of those X's through it.
We should ask about the Epstein list.
Cornea.
Relevant. Current events.
It's so interesting that they're like, oh my god, look, there's no list. Okay, but your president was still like hanging with him. Like what? Like
And who was it? There was I remember watching this news broadcast. Someone was like, dude, the Epstein list is on my desk, and she worked for Trump.
Pam Bondi.
Yeah.
Oh, Pam.
Yeah.
So the particular
Did
quote
she
by-
make a statement about what happened?
the particular quote by Pam
Oh, she's the
Bondi
Attorney
is
General.
that
I
there's
know that is.
there is a list of case documents. So she worded it in the way where she kind of had like plausible deniability, like, oh, I didn't say that he had a list of clients. I'm saying I had client papers on my desk.
Yeah, that's how it works.
And I think that was just like an easy out to like backtrack and be like, oh no, actually we didn't find that.
When you have the background made, when you send it to me, they'll be able to read it, right? I don't know how to make those things. I trust you.
Do you want to throw someone in?
Huh?
Do you want to throw someone in?
To debate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to request up.
Oh, no one's requested?
Yeah, I think they're scared. Well, okay, the Lord is my
Cowards.
shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. Just
Oh hell no, not saucy again.
Oh.
No, he kind of.
Why do all the groypers come to us? It's like they know that they
He's
can't.
not a groyper.
Okay. But we do have an influx of groypers who come over here, and I feel like it's because they know that they can't get anywhere. They can't talk when it
And
comes.
why don't you want to let him in?
Oh, I just know him. He's corny as fuck. That's it.
Oh,
He's
that's
just corny.
it? Oh, okay.
Look, that y'all let him up. I don't care. I mean, I'm just saying. Partially a troll, partially corny.
Okay.
No, not corniness. Please.
No,
That's my one weakness.
corny men. I don't know. Like if women are corny, like okay, it's fine.
Okay, Blue Bee. Hopefully they don't just start saying slurs. Oh, well that's I went to pick Blue Bee and the Lord is my shepherd came up.
Oh, well.
Damn it. That God wanted, okay?
Just watch it, okay? Because if you're too corny, we will kick you, okay?
Notice how the
Not his
corniness already
pronouns.
starts.
Yeah, it's not just pronouns, actually. Corny.
That's way cornier than anything that he said so far, so.
Yeah, but Anne already said women are allowed to be corny.
That's
Right.
true.
That's
True.
That's right.
Okay, what's your take? You got a hot take?
I have a few hot takes, I guess. We could start with this one. I mean, well, this is really a hot take, but Christ is king, he is risen. I mean, if any of you guys don't affirm that proposition, you can get dunked on. Abortion is impermissible. That's another one. I guess we could just start. Oh, and post-Keynesianism is based. If you guys have any contentions with any of those, I mean.
You're an MMTer as well?
MMT is definitely true.
I don't feel like I can argue the merits of MMT. I feel like its descriptions are largely accurate, but I don't know about its prescriptions. But I don't know. Do we want to have a religious debate? I'm an agnostic.
I love Jesus, so I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna help out here against
help.
Do you not feel like you have the burden of truth, the burden of proof?
Me?
Oh, burden of proof isn't real.
Who said that? Anne?
But that's a different conversation.
Anne, you don't believe burden of proof is real?
No, I think the whole thing about because burden of proof, when you hear people say burden of proof, they're making some distinction between positive and negative claims, right?
Sure.
Right, and then they're assigning burden of proof onto the person making a positive claim. I think the positive and negative claim distinction is like meaningless.
Okay, that I would be willing to hear that out, but you would still agree that there are some arguments that have a burden of proof, right? Like Russell's teapot, famously.
You would have to remind me what that is. That there's a flying teapot.
I'm making a claim that
Yeah.
there's a teapot orbiting Mars right now.
Yeah. I know what you're talking. Sorry, I know what
If you
you're
want to accept it, you have to prove, or like it's on me to prove that. It's not on you to disprove that.
Well,
'Cause
that
I'm
would
making-
be on you to prove that
If she's
you both-
agnostic. If she's agnostic, you can have a negative claim and it's still an affirmative claim. Like if you say this is not X thing, that's actually an affirmative claim. You have to also prove that.
Or you can
So
say
she would have to
it's-
say there is
Sure.
absolutely not a teapot in the set. That could also be an affirmative. If she says,
Sure.
I don't
No, I
know,
agree with you.
I don't
agree.
believe it necessarily, I'm
Sure.
agnostic, then the burden is on you.
I agree with you.
I actually think agnostics might also have under like the burden of proof view, like if you actually accept that as being something like worth using. I think agnostics would also have that because what they're saying is that the priors should be left at 50-50 for that hypothesis.
I don't think agnostics would necessarily say 50-50. I think you cite that a lot, but I think it could even be like, we could say 75-25, but just because something is probabilistic doesn't mean that we should assert that it's true.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just saying, like, you could be agnostic, and that's fine. But you are still asserting that there is not enough evidence to affirm the
I
proposition.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Oh, host, are you Catholic or Orthodox?
That's Mercedes. Mercedes, your host.
Okay.
Why?
Why am I not Catholic or Orthodox?
Yeah.
I'm just Baptist, man. I don't know.
Oh my God.
I mean, look, we all know why Simon's name was changed to Peter, right? And we know what Jesus said in the scriptures. I mean, we know he said, on this rock I will build my church.
Are you
And
Catholic
that
or are
church
you
was not
Eastern
called-
Ortho?
I'm Orthodox, but Catholic.
Bro, come the fuck on.
Like, the
Eastern
sacraments
Orthodox
are valid.
Protestants coping, okay? The only one who gets claims to the spiritual inheritance of the keys of the kingdom are the Catholics. Just to be clear.
Look,
all
if you want to go
EO
over the
is
schism,
doing
that's fine.
is-
Look, if you want to go
you
over
guys
the
know the
schism, we
EO
can do that,
schism
but
history?
you
Hold
don't
on,
need to
this is
keep
my
on
favorite
spreading
lore
it
to
out,
tell
okay? But if
people
you want to go
because
over the
EOs
seven
get so mad.
ecumenical
Do you guys want to
councils,
hear it?
and you want to go over the
Do you guys
schism,
want to hear it?
we can go over it. We can go
When
over
the
it.
EO
But the
schism, for
Eastern
those of you who
Orthodox
are
Church
unaware,
is the original
the Catholics
church,
and the
the
EO
Catholic.
schism like several years ago. I can't remember like how many hundreds of years ago. But what basically happened is that the Pope was like not happy. They were disagreeing about like some Trinity shit. Some shit as a Protestant I don't give a fuck about, right? So they were thank you for the hat. I should do the AI thing. So they were fighting over this, and
This is
basically the Pope goes, "You're excommunicated. You're not part of the church anymore." So the Pope goes, "I'm breaking up with you." The messenger arrives, and then the patriarch of Constantinople at the time goes, I'm breaking up with you. And he just responds by saying that actually the Pope is the heretic. And he was getting, even though it's like, basically you have the first in the command firing the second in the command. And when the second in the command hears that, he goes,
oh, I'm firing you actually. That's the beginning of the Eastern Orthodox fucking church. And then after that, they just got fucking dumpstered by Muslims over and over again. And the Catholics were like, well, I guess we'll bail you out because you are fellow Christians, even though you're heretics. So they bailed them out militarily multiple times over and over and over again. And now EO bros on the internet are like, aren't we strong? And then they like can't even open a pickle jar. It's unironically, it's always the fucking
Andrew
okay?
Wilson does not count.
I
You fucking
love
cunt.
EO history. It's so fucking cringe. You guys are losers, okay? And just to be clear, you can have the schism from the church. I'm a Protestant. I'm also protesting the Catholic Church. The issue is your guys' fucking spiritual cope about it. It's so fucking funny. At least Protestants dumped the Pope. You guys got dumped and then pretended it was you guys who did it all along. Like actual down bad girlfriend energy. It's crazy.
See,
That
look,
was really
so
good.
what I would like to do, actually, that doesn't even matter. Look, just provide any evidence that anything you said is true.
W's.
Just look up the history of the Eastern Orthodox Church and don't read
I
it from an EO bro.
I know
Read like
all
a
of the
secular
history-
historian,
I know
and it'll
all
be
of the
there.
history of it. Do you even know the year the schism happened? Just out of curiosity.
I think I said it was like a couple of centuries ago. I don't know exactly the year.
A couple centuries ago. Well, that's specific. So it happened in 1054. Do you know? I mean, okay. Look.
Have you read a book? Name a book. This doesn't dispute anything. Just to be clear,
Well,
so
hey,
Michael
here,
and Leo, I think,
So
was
do
it?
you know? Do you know what the dispute? Do you know what the dispute was over?
It was something about the Trinity. It's like your guys' weird shit about the Trinity that you guys.
No,
talk
it was
about.
it was over the election of a new pope. That's what the dispute was over. So it wasn't about anything to do with the Trinity because everything that had to do with the Trinity was decided in the 7 ecumenical councils centuries prior. Specifically, I think it was the 2nd and the 5th ecumenical council. Do you know what those are?
Yes, yeah, I'm familiar.
So what was the 2nd ecumenical council?
I don't know what the second one was specifically.
Constantinople, and what did they discuss there?
Okay, so the major issues was a multiple.
Dunked on right now,
Like
by
it was
the way.
like, it
No,
was
hey,
like.
Well,
it
hold
was
on.
like
What's
the, what?
I have a question for the Lord is my shepherd. What should I call you, bro?
Saucy.
Saucy. I have a question for you. How did World War I get started?
Wasn't some dude like some like prince or some shit?
Yeah, tell me the exact name of the person and the date it occurred. Otherwise, you don't know what the hell happened.
I can actually tell you that.
You understand what? No.
What
You
was the
understand what you're doing? You're putting the burden on.
No,
on-
I'm going to tell you. It was Archduke Ferdinand. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it happened. I can tell you the date.
The exact date.
It was
Time of date.
1914. It was 1914, and it was.
Yes. Okay. I just looked at it. Was the Philippic
was-
clause. That was what you guys were bitch mad about. You were also mad
No,
about.
it was over the
papal
election of
authority.
a new pope, and then later.
No, that was one of the things. There was four
and then
things.
later
Yes.
we had,
It was the
later we had the beef over the
Philippic
filioque.
clause.
No. The filioque was
Filioque.
later beef. The filioque was later beef. That was after the
No.
that was after
That
we were
was
mad about the new pope.
no. That was way.
And to
before.
answer the question
that was
about
way
Archduke
before.
Ferdinand,
I just
it was
looked up
in
the
1914,
dates
but I
because
don't
you're
know the
going to be
date.
autistic about it. I said so. The
You can be
Nicene
autistic
Creed,
about it, that's
the
fine.
ones that you guys were fighting over, was in 381 AD. Okay, the papal authority
It was in
issue.
381
came-
AD. That's
yes,
great.
yes. The papal authority issue was in
Papal
1054. And then later, you guys also had a couple of differences about like cultural stuff, but really, it was the filioque and the papal authority. Those are
Yeah.
the two
So
things.
do you know when the schism happened?
Like I have it up now, so it's kind of cheating.
1054. Thank
Yeah,
you for
it's in
confirming
10.
what I. Oh, okay. So thank
Yeah.
you for confirming what I said. Yeah, the filioque dispute was centuries
I know
prior,
my
right?
dates, bro. Let me then
You can
correct.
pipe down there. Look, I don't care if you're bad. I don't care if Seth thinks you're bad. All right, you're getting dunked on. My foot is on your neck right now. You're getting stomped on.
Yeah,
right?
as long as
So,
you say it, it's
we
true,
schismed
right,
in
bro?
1054 because of the
You
dispute
definitely don't
over
seem
the-
like you're
over the
coping
Pope.
super
Okay.
hard.
It was a dispute over papal authority, right? That's what the dispute was about. This is obvious. Everybody knows this. And then there was also another schism like the Western Schism. We can get into that later. But look, this is obvious, right? The Eastern
It's
Orthodox Church
both
is
of
obviously
these things.
based, one,
It's
because
both
the
of these
filioque,
things.
look, the filioque
Pope
ought to be
Leo
rejected.
excommunicated Michael. That was fundamentally the schism, right? They were disagreeing about a number of things. Papal authority was
Oh
one
my
of the
God.
big ones, and the
Christ.
filioque clause was also a big one. And then Leo
The
said, "I'm
filioque was
breaking up with
discussed
you."
centuries prior.
Leo said, "I'm breaking up with you." Do you disagree that Leo said, "I'm breaking up with you," and then Michael was like, "No, I'm breaking up with you"?
Do I disagree that that's what happened? Yes. Of course I disagree that's what happened. What do you talking? There's not a single shred of evidence to suggest that any of that is true.
Leo excommunicate Michael first?
Did Pope Leo excommunicate Michael first? No, Michael left. Yes, Michael left.
Pope Leo sent a messenger.
Also,
to
I just
tell
want to be
Michael
clear. I just
that
want to
he
be
was
clear. Andrew
excommunicated.
Wilson doesn't count. We don't. A requirement to be Orthodox is to be able to open an olive jar. He doesn't count.
Sure.
All right, good.
Fine
Yeah,
too.
he's breaking up.
I
with
just want
him.
to point out that I'm currently coin mogging everybody on panel except for Kayla.
Again, as long as you've got to say it out loud, right? Also, not my name. Try to read, okay? Do you see an extra fucking A in that name anywhere?
I'm gonna say your name how I want to. Sorry.
I was gonna say, to be fair, you called me Anna earlier, and I was like, all right.
Ooh. His Giga Chad response: I can't read. I'll just make things up.
Thank you for calling me a Giga Chad. I appreciate it.
Also, Leo is a much better name than Michael. Another reason why Catholics are more Giga Chad than Eastern Orthodox.
That's false. Michael is the name of an archangel, and Leo is the name of nobody.
Leo means lion.
Okay, and Michael is the name of an archangel who sits next to God.
So that again just means you guys are like second or third. Okay, lion is the king of the jungle.
Okay, well, the first person's name is Jesus, and I don't think that Jesus sounds like Leo. Do you think it sounds like Leo?
I just
Doesn't
think
sound
Leo,
like Michael
lion,
either.
king of the jungle. Michael, third, maybe in power in heaven.
King of the jungle. I
Like,
don't know.
like Michael.
What is the
You know, second in the power authority.
I don't even know what that means.
I know.
Yeah,
That's okay.
that's great. I don't know what the king of the that makes no sense in this context.
Okay. Anyways, I don't think anyone actually wants to hear.
Hey, Josh P, did you vote for Trump really quickly?
No, Harris.
Oh, that's based.
Wait.
Also, I just want to be clear.
Wait.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I also just want to be clear. Michael didn't excommunicate Pope Leo because he died. So that was also false. That was just confusion. You can't dump someone who's dead.
Really?
I just wanted to comment on this guy who said that, he was talking about all these names. Jesus wasn't called Jesus back then. You know that, right?
Oh, he was called Yeshua. Nobody cares.
Okay, well. Unless you're gonna make an
Nobody
argument
cares.
that
That shit is not
it doesn't
interesting.
matter.
That shit is not. In the Middle East, they say things different. Nobody cares, bro. Nobody cares.
Really?
Dude, if you're making an
Rules
argument
for
about
me, but
names, then
not
how
for
does it not
me.
matter?
You know what they call Jesus in Brazil? They call him Jesus. Nobody's interested in how different countries pronounce it. It's the
You
dumbest
know what they
shit.
call
Really?
Kyla in literally any country? Kyla.
Kayla.
They say it correctly.
Actually, no,
Okay?
they don't. They probably say it weird in like India or something. I
No,
don't know.
most people
Hey,
say my
Two
name correctly
Smokes.
except for fat, stupid Americans, typically.
Fat stupid American. The only fat stupid American here is Anne. Everyone else.
Guys, let's go BMI for
That is a
BMI
very
right now.
attractive American.
Come on.
Want to go
let's-
waistline for waistline?
He's going
Oh,
after the
absolutely.
vegan.
Yeah, well, you know what's crazy? We can't go waistline for waistline because I have an empty set where my waistline is supposed to be, right? So there's no
Tashi,
waistline for waistline.
let's just say this. One of us has done a face reveal, the other hasn't.
True.
I've done a face reveal. I just haven't done a face reveal to you.
Hey,
Right.
Two Smokes. Two Smokes. Two Smokes. You there? Buddy?
Yo, Kyla, are you single?
Not anymore.
Definitely not for you. I'm not single, and I would never
That's
be for you.
unfortunate. What if I told you that I go to Wharton and I'm 6'4"?
I would be even less interested because I don't like people who can't read and cope about their religion, typically.
You're a Protestant. Your religion is entirely cope.
No, we broke up with the Pope. The Pope broke
Can
up
you
with
justify?
you. And
Can you
guys
justify
coped.
sola scriptura?
And then you got attacked by a bunch of Muslims, and you had to get bailed out by Catholics.
Can you guys
Multiple
justify
times.
sola scriptura?
Bugging
You guys,
losers,
can
by
you
the way.
justify sola scriptura?
Hey,
Protestants.
one second.
Protestants clearly
I'm actually
made the.
not. I'm a Protestant. who's not
Protestants
supposed to
clearly
go.
made the most correct decision because they just backed out of this whole fucking argument. That's the most boring thing possible.
Hey, Two Smokes. Really
Exactly.
quickly.
Exactly.
To the Two Smokes person up above, are you MAGA by chance?
I'm about as far left as left can get.
Ooh.
That face card is T. That face card screams far left.
Period. No, the lefties are baddies. Like,
What's far left as left can get? Are you like pro Stalin?
I'm following you back to
I
Smokes.
think socialism should be a basic. I mean, I love Sweden. I love what they did. You know, I like living there.
Sure.
Hell,
I
my
think
mom's half Swede. I tried to go back.
Did you just say your mom's ass is sweet?
I'm
No.
so done.
I'm so done.
Hey, Two Smokes,
Thanks for coming on.
that was really good. That was really good. You did a great job, and I made sure to follow you back, and we all love you so much. We just definitely don't want you getting bullied by the Lord, your savior up here. So, anyways, is there any MAGA in the chat who wants to come up and debate? Anyone who
Can
either
we ban
loves
Catholics from the conversation?
Please.
Just arbitrarily.
Well, he's EO. We have to
Oh,
ban
true,
EO way
true.
before we ban Catholics. Okay, get it straight.
I say just ban him. I mean,
Wait, can we let Seth back up? Maybe he'll justify the filioque.
I desperately don't want to have a theological debate about the filioque. Holy shit! How little could I ever care?
If you're a MAGA in the chat and you want to come up, you can come up. Or if you are,
If you're Catholic,
yeah, if you're Catholic.
but only Catholics.
Baptists are welcome too. I'll fix you.
oh hell nah.
Aren't you Baptist? How are you fixing a Baptist? to
Because
be a
I think
Baptist?
all the Baptists are wrong.
Didn't you say you were Baptist?
Yeah,
Okay.
by association.
What does that mean?
It means when you get to the core of my beliefs, I actually just really like Jesus and think the rest of the Bible was constructed in order to get people to self-govern in the wake of lack of bodies, combined with the fact that, well, kings wanted people to listen to them. But I like Jesus, and then I also believe in some reincarnation shit too. So
That is not Baptist.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I love my Baptist people.
Okay, so
That's fair. It's a social category.
Okay.
That's fair.
So
I still live in Utah, so I guess I'm still Mormon.
Yes.
Even though I don't believe in any of their tenets.
like 100%. It's by
Exactly.
association.
Because I love my family, so.
Yeah. It makes you Mormon and it makes me Baptist.
Hmm.
If you just tell them you're Baptist and then you just kind of like get them, I don't know. I've talked to a lot of Baptists and I'll take that approach and they're like, you know what, that's pretty cool. And I'm like, okay.
They're lying to you. Like, you're going to turn your back and they're like, what the hell was that chick about? Like, I guess I'll take the number, but like, we should for sure talk to her.
No, I mean, like, these are people that I just like fish with and
Yeah.
cows.
For sure.
Cows.
Shit like that. Cars
Who's
and
Seth?
cows.
All right. Anyone want to join? We've got opinions, I suppose. If you've got a hot take, just come in and we'll probably disagree with you.
I don't
Yeah.
have opinions.
I only have cold takes.
And do you have our background yet?
We can
Yeah,
disagree
yeah,
with
I
each
sent
other if we
two
want,
of
but that would.
Okay. Oh, you sent two of them. Is one of them ultra? Is one of them the soy level ultra?
What does that mean?
Soy level ultra is basically
No, I know what I understand the phrase. What do you want about the phrase? Like what? Like
oh no wait
Soy
wait
level ultra.
Yeah.
How are we being
that's
confusing?
it.
if we can't do soy level ultra because the part of the reason why I want to do soy level ultra is simply to watch Kyla like freak out on these people because I think it'll be entertaining. But
Wait.
huh?
I feel like I'm having like a brain like.
Yeah, I don't know what she's
block.
talking about either.
For soy level ultra?
You mean just those 3 words? Like that's it?
No, it's just a
Okay.
concept. It would have to have some one-liners in there.
That's what I was like. I don't know what the one-liner is. I don't know. I just put the "it's not all men" thing.
That's great. Yeah, that's perfect. Some white guy wants to come up. We'll let him up.
Who's this?
I'm already up. Wait a minute.
No, you're one of the self-hating ones, though.
True.
I can't tell you how many times I've been called a race traitor by the right. All right, let me tell you. Look, I've got a question. So I'm a socialist. I have kind of an idea of y'all's political alignments. I've seen, the YouTube videos and the TikToks and all that. I am growing concerned in the ability for electoralism to push this country forward at this point, especially at the federal level.
Mhm.
What do you guys see as the way forward at this point, at this juncture?
So, I'll answer. I really don't like labels. A lot of people consider me a socialist when they hear my policies. A lot of people consider me a liberal. Like I don't. It's kind of inconsequential to me. But I would definitely consider myself an electoralist, mostly because I think that a significant majority of this country is advocating for what Trump is doing and believes in what Trump is doing. And if we care about a democracy, which sorry, I don't know if I cut out. If we believe in a democracy, which I think is good to care about, we should believe that the right path forward is changing people's minds, not changing people's votes. Or no, not changing not changing how they voted, but changing how they will vote. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Whoa, wait, pause. For the comments, I didn't say voting doesn't work. I said I believe in electoralism. I'm just concerned at how useful it is at this moment.
I think it's super fair to be nihilistic about electoralism sometimes, but I also think that what else are we going to do? There's a classic Winston Churchill quote that like democracy is the worst form of government. Or sorry, is a terrible form of government. It's just better than it's better than everything else. I definitely believe in that. I don't see other options other than changing people's minds. And I think that we don't know how to talk to people. And I think that that should be number one in everyone's minds, is talking to your MAGA relatives and try to change people's minds. Like, I've got a brother-in-law who's one of the craziest MAGA relatives I've ever met. I talk to him constantly, and one of my biggest goals is to have everyone in the room laugh at him sometimes, or to have a genuine conversation with him, kind of depending on how what I think is the most effective way to get him to change, or to get other people around him to change. I don't know. I think we should focus on the individual and social ways to talk to people. And that will transfer in electoral wins, I believe.
Awesome. If anybody else wants to answer, I had one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. So my second question is, obviously, people consider, outside of federal elections, the New York mayoral, I can't speak. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
Okay,
the
you're
New
doing
York
great.
mayoral. Thank you. People consider the New York mayoral election to be the most important election outside of the federal government. Yes, at least that's what the people say. So what do we think about Mamdani?
Yeah.
Socialists
Yeah.
say that.
I have criticism.
I'm super down for the experiment. I'm curious to see. Like, I don't care about labels of policies ever. I don't care about socialists or any of these things. I just want working people's lives to be better. That's all I care about. So if Mamdani, like the $30 minimum wage, probably not a good idea. Probably don't do that. Rent freezing, also not really economically shown to be viable. But I'm open to the grocery store idea. Like, fuck it. Like, let's just try things. And honestly, if it fails, then we know. But I'm down to the experiment.
I do think, just on a really technical level, sometimes his policy is called rent freezing, mostly because he calls it rent freezing. What he's doing is not exactly rent freezing. He wants to rent freeze. Shit, I had this in the back of my mind. It was it's like it's rent stabilized housing as opposed to new developments, or a blanket for all housing. So the detriments that we usually see due to rent freezing will probably not occur due to Mamdani's policies. But I don't know. I'm definitely interested in what he wants to do. I think that, yeah, stabilized housing. Sorry, did I say rent? I don't know what I said. But yeah, it's only for stabilized housing.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not like fundamentally opposed to anyone just because they say they're a socialist. Like, I'm not a party. I don't care about like party politics, almost like team partisanship generally.
And
I'm not New York. I'm not a New Yorker. If that's who they elect, let's try it. And if it's a massive success, great. Like, that would be a great thing.
I was at first really critical, because I'm like, obviously Senate races matter a lot more, like maybe Georgia races, whatever, like whichever one is on the edge. But the fact that we're putting in a YIMBY who cares a lot about building new houses and has said multiple times about the market placement for new affordable housing, that is such a net good for the largest city in America. I can't really vocalize how important that is. So I am all for Mamdani for sure.
Wait, did you say NIMBY or YIMBY?
YIMBY. I said with a Y.
Oh, okay. I was about to be like, I'm like, NIMBY for real?
Yeah.
But,
no.
okay, cool.
No.
All right.
No,
awesome.
he's a chill ass guy.
Well, unless anybody else had anything direct, I'll squeak on out of here and let some more people yap it up. I appreciate y'all. I believe in the Mamdani mandate. Love you all, and I fully agree with that prompt. The left does need to stop self-sabotaging. Y'all have a great evening.
We love you.
Oh, I love you more. See you later.
See ya, hun. Cactus. Hi.
Yeah, how's it going? I see you guys celebrating the Mom Donnie win in New York primary. As a Republican, as a conservative, I actually rooting for him to become the mayor.
Okay.
You know why?
Because you want to see it fail, and then everyone knows how bad socialists are.
No, it's not that. I love nothing than see those left-wing blue hair woke in New York getting taxed out of existence. That's my favorite thing to see.
Okay, so you want liberals to suffer.
No, that's the policy they believe in, right? They believe in tax the rich. Those left-wing rich in New Yorker, why should they tax hell out of existence if they believe in taxing the rich?
Does
Wait,
Mom
if your
Donnie
whole-
even have the capacity to do much as far as like effective progressive taxation policy?
He actually has talked about he wants a 50% increase on citywide taxes for the highest marginal earners.
Gotcha.
So,
Remember, none of 90% of his policy would not work without tax increase.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, again.
wait, hold
I'm not
on.
opposed
If
to
this
tax
is your
increase.
whole point, that, and by the way, when I say 50%, city taxes are like very, 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 very little of how much taxation actually occurs. That's usually why, whatever. That's like, it's a small increase that they're going to see. And if your whole point is millionaires are gonna lose $10,000 due to Mom Donnie's policies, everyone agrees with this.
Let me tell you something.
Okay.
The 2% that tax, that bring the marginal total tax to more than 50%. You know that, right?
Yeah, I just said yes, I do know that. In fact, I just said that.
Because remember, okay, let me give you an idea. Let's say like I live in New York and I make $2 million a year.
Yep.
You know, 2%, like 2% of $2 million. That is going to be enough
40,000.
for me. Huh?
I think it's 40,000. If I did my math right.
So $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
You think like people who's like operating in a slim budget, like you will like, you know what? If I just leave of New York City, go to New Jersey, I will save $40,000 in my pocket.
Okay, first off, this is one of the most brain dead takes on tax policies I've ever heard. We live in a marginal tax rate when it comes to America. So it is not your full $1 million that get taxed at 10% or 2%. It is your last, I think, hold on, I don't know what the top marginal, does anyone know the top marginal rate in America is? I think it's like $100,000. It's only after your $100,000 or 150.
626,000.
Thank you. Okay, even fucking better. It's only that last like 380 that gets taxed at 2%.
No. Because remember that 2%, that's not just the city tax. And you have to also add the state tax. Also, you can also add the federal tax. If you combine them all together, you see the full picture. If you just focusing on the 2%, you're missing the whole point.
Okay, hold on. Sure. Yeah. The top earners are getting taxed more than 2%. What's your point? Obviously they are.
That what you're saying is only CD 2%. You're talking about no. Right now they are taxing them almost around 3.8 or 3.9. If he increases by 2%, that will almost become like more than almost 6%. Increase the tax to 2%. Will almost become the city tax alone will become almost 6%. The city tax.
Okay.
Right. And
Top
remember,
marginal rate, though.
Only,
Top marginal
only because he lives in the city of New York.
Okay.
If he just crossed the river to the New Jersey, all that's gone.
Okay. Oh, and he's gone.
Okay, so no, sorry.
No,
so
sorry, you're good.
My point is, I myself, if I was advising Mom Donnie, I would tell him to increase 2% to 90%. What's the difference?
I would say 88% is the difference between 90 and 2.
Yeah, but what is the difference? If you're taxing the rich, then why are you taking small?
Well,
when you can take all the
because
rich?
I think there's a difference between taxing them 2% and taxing them 98%. I think that would show different interests.
Because if his goal is to control means of production, if that is his own goal,
I don't think that's his goal. I don't think that's his goal.
Yes, that's what he said. Yes,
okay.
he said.
Well then he chose terrible policies to enact that goal then. And I like his policies.
That's a
think
communist.
I
That's a
think I
communist
think the
Wait, hold on,
actual
hold on. If
analysis is
you're
that
nothing
he's.
new about it.
if you're
I
saying
think I
if
think
you're
the
saying
big
that
brain
he
take
should
here
be
is that he's
doing
not
90,
currently trying to do that.
okay,
Like
so he's
taxing
not
people
currently trying to
that
do it. I don't even understand this argument.
no, my argument is this. My argument is that he claimed to be wanting to control mean of production in New York. Specifically, that's his own politic ideology, which is the taxable of communist ideology.
Okay, well, first off, I think he did say that on a podcast. I heard that once, that he was interested in changing the means of production. None of his policies show that even a little bit. So, like, I don't even understand the point of this argument. He's changed his mind multiple times on a number of different things. I and his policies don't show that. Like, I don't even understand what we're arguing. You're just like, oh, we got to be worried about someone saying something bad. Who's the tone policer now? Who's the anti-free speecher now?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between somebody giving
His
their like
policies are
ideal
not-
prescriptive. I think there's a huge difference between someone giving their like ideal
No.
prescriptive.
I am not advocating. I'm not advocating for him
prescriptive
to
beliefs about
not
what
talk.
about their ideology, and then their actual policy and what they're implementing. Those can be two different things. The
Okay, one
policy
second,
doesn't necessarily mean it's going towards that goal.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not advocating for Mandani to not talk by any means. He can speak. This is mine every day. He's won.
Okay.
But I'm always advocating for people to hold him accountable for what he believes and what he's talking about.
Okay.
The idea is you guys have to rely on Mamdani not to implement his belief. That's crazy. Like, if he believes that is exactly gonna do. Like,
I'll
the
be
idea-
okay. You know what? You caught me. If Mamdani goes ahead and bans private ownership in the city of New York, I will be against Mamdani. You caught me.
Has he ever advocated for that?
No, obviously, that's my whole point. He's just like, oh, we're going to change the means of production. When is he advocating abolishing private property? Can we be on planet Earth for 2 seconds? Jeez.
Yes. If you implement mean of production, you abolish private property.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Bye, Kyla.
This is not like rocket science. If he implement New York
Well, it
science,
depends on like what kind of socialist you are, and like what you mean. Like I consider myself a socialist. I'd like to limit the amount of private property as much as possible. I don't think I'd like pass a policy that would like
Okay,
get rid of it.
I have a question. Cactus is your name's Cactus. I don't know what to call you. Whatever, Cactus.
Yeah.
Did you vote Trump?
Yes.
Okay. Trump said he wanted to rip up the Constitution. How do you feel about that?
Rip up the Constitution? I am 100% disagree with that with Donald Trump.
Okay, so why do you hold a New York City mayor more accountable than the president of the United States?
So no. I hold Donald Trump accountable on multiple things, even including in that thing. I hold him accountable for multiple things, especially the one is the policy that I hate, like I don't like about Donald Trump the most is trying to make Canada 51st state. I do not like the liberal shithole Canada to become 51st state. No.
Can you acknowledge what? I'm going to hold you to what I just said because you didn't answer my question.
Yes.
Why are you still voting for Trump, even though he said he would rip up the Constitution? And you said that Mamdani is a terror to New York because he said that he is interested in changing the means of production, even though he has no policies advocating for it.
So, ripping off the Constitution technically is constitutional because in America you can burn American flag, you can burn down the Constitution, you can do all of that.
That's not the same thing. What you're talking about is freedom of speech of a random citizen being able to burn the flag. It is not constitutional for the president of the United States to fully ignore the Constitution. That was
No.
one of the big.
You didn't say that ignore the Constitution. You specifically said rip off.
Okay, rip up.
If anyone want to rip off the paper of the Constitution,
no. Oh my gosh. No. Sorry. Let me be clear. If Trump just wanted to take a piece of paper with the Constitution written on it and rip it up, that would be fine. I don't care about that. No. He said he wanted to terminate the. Here, I can pull up the exact tweet, or technically a Truth Social post, where he said he wanted to terminate the Constitution.
This level of fraud cause.
Are you talking about something according to Hebrew Accord or something fun like that?
Nope. I'm not. Here, give me 2 seconds and I'll pull this up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Why does it not have a fucking? Let's go images. Here we go. Oh wait, no, that's not it.
Like that's if I was in New York, I'll be voting for Mondani. I promise.
Yeah, because just it would. Where is it?
Well,
If you
Cactus,
ask
you're one
me-
of our more entertaining guests, so that's good at least.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, like I myself, here's the thing though, I don't think Mamdani gonna win.
Yeah, so with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception, and working closely with big tech companies in the DNC and the
There we go.
Democrat Party, do you throw the presidential election and results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules and regulations and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections.
Let me just I want to repeat something that he said. A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Donald Trump said that, and he tweeted that. Do you have opinions about that?
Are there like article in the Constitution allow the president to suspend the people civil liberty right
No.
to do?
They do
Oh,
not.
what is
Martial law? Is that what you're referring to?
No, not just martial law. There's that kind of habeas accord. That what they call it.
Habeas corpus?
Habeas corpus.
So habeas corpus, notably, is not found in the Constitution. That's a lawful. And I'm not a lawyer, so I could be wrong on a little bit of this.
Yeah.
But habeas corpus is a right that essentially the crime needs to be. Habeas corpus is like the right that a victim needs to be able to see their crime. No,
I thought it was the right to
I'm not a
challenge your
lawyer.
detention. It's a right to challenge your
Yes, that's
detention.
what it is. Sorry, thank you.
Or detainment.
So if he say, because remember Donald Trump said a lot of vague stuff, but here's the thing: if Donald Trump clearly said he will not follow the Constitution, or he will not follow he will not follow the Constitution as it's written. If he said that, I am 100% against that, and I will not vote for that one. If he clearly said that, who did that?
But he
Because
did say that in 2022, and you still voted for him in 2024.
in 2022. No. He talking that in a context if the election was stolen.
But he clarified that the election was stolen. That's what he believed.
Yeah, no. I tell you, like, he said that in the context of the election was stolen. You give you example. If Joe Biden is Kamala Harris saying like, if he know the Donald Trump and Elon Musk stole the election from her. Or like if he was president, do you would support? Do you would support like, if you guys clearly know Donald Trump stole the election? Do you would support like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden to do something, right?
That's it. That's an interesting hypothetical that I would love to entertain. But before I do so, I want to point out.
Because you bring
Hold
a
on.
hypothetical question. That's
Chill.
why-
Chill.
No,
2
you bring a
seconds.
hypothetical
2 seconds. There's a distinction here, which is I'm saying that I know that someone stole the election. Yeah, we would probably need to figure out a way that we can probably disband something about the rule of law, some like the president or something. I don't know exactly what the right choice to do, but I would have to know that. Donald Trump investigated this 6 different times. He asked his DOJ personally to investigate this, and his DOJ said there is no evidence that the election was stolen. And he kept repeating the lie, and he said, if the election is stolen, I am allowed to rip up the Constitution. And he is also saying the election was stolen. So why is he not saying that he's able to rip up the Constitution?
You self admitted that he said if the election was stolen.
But he also believes that the
He
election was
believes
stolen.
that.
He keeps saying that. He says it constantly. He says, oh, the election was stolen. The election was stolen. The election was stolen. Oh, also, if the election was stolen, I get to do what I want with the Constitution.
The thing is, because remember, the stuff you're arguing, because if you bring me a hypothetical question, I'm gonna answer with a
Hypothetical.
answer.
Oh my God.
Hypothetical answer. That's how it works. You cannot bring me like a hypothetical question. for me to
Wait, can you
answer.
define a hypothetical for me real quick? What's a hypothetical?
Well, the hypothetical is something might happen in the future.
That is not what a hypothetical is. So can you tell me? So once again? So a hypothetical is usually a made-up scenario that people are using to try and attack like underlying premises, usually within an argument. We aren't talking about any. Okay, so what we're bringing
I'm
is it made
summarizing
up?
it of like what is
Wait.
might happen
He
in the
absolutely
future.
Donald. Wait,
It's not
Donald
something that
Trump,
happened in the past.
Give me a sec. Stop talking. Donald Trump absolutely said that the election was stolen, and he absolutely said that if the election was stolen, that would allow him to rip the Constitution. There's nothing hypothetical about this. This is just reality.
Yes, for me, but funny thing is, you don't want arguing in a circle, because for me, I clearly tell you my position on that. If Donald Trump, because remember, if Donald Trump believed the election was stolen, right, and then he wanna do that, I'm asking yourself who make a claim, you think that is going to be disgusting and that is bad against the Constitution. I'm asking you, if Kamala Harris and yourself believe the election was stolen by Donald Trump, would you want them to do anything?
Okay, the answer is yes. The answer is yes, but this is a this is not a fair comparison. And the reason why it's not a fair comparison is because when I say I would believe something, I would have sources that are confirming whether or not I believe it. Donald Trump has zero sources, and in fact, every time he sought out those sources, they confirmed that the election was not in fact stolen, and he still propagated that lie. So that's why that's not a fair comparison, even a little bit. Does that make sense?
Here's the thing. Let's come back to the reality. 99% of the human being in this planet always believe something that has not been proven. You just don't have to come over here pretending like everyone you believe have to be proven.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I can just go.
This is such a dumb point.
Even Kamala Harris believe he's going to win the election.
This is like I don't get why people you're doing a giant platitude. It's nothing to do like pointing out the fact that yes, that people oftentimes believe things that aren't true has nothing to do with the fact that what we're trying to prove, what we have proved, that Trump is literally saying I'm allowed to rip up the Constitution, and I'm going to.
There's a distinction between you're equivocating here. There's a distinction between a belief in a future event that will probabilistically happen and a belief that a past event has happened. If I say, because I also thought that Donald Trump was going to win the election. I think all three. No. The last two times that he ran, okay? I was surprised that Biden won. I was fairly sure that he was going to win in 2024. I thought Hillary was going to win in 2016, as did most people, okay? Two of those three things were wrong, but I didn't go out of my steps and go, actually, Hillary Clinton is president. That's my belief. No, I believed incorrectly, and then facts came up to me, the event occurred, and then I changed my mind. Something that eludes Donald Trump. Donald Trump is perfectly incapable of being able to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're arguing about Donald Trump of what is what is belief and what is not belief, I'm not here to argue because I believe what Donald Trump believe in or not. That's not my
no. Don't evade the question.
My argument over here.
No. Because I only care about what he believes, because he's saying if I believe that the election was stolen, I get to terminate the Constitution, which is a belief that he holds. So he's essentially, modus ponens. He's saying I get to terminate the Constitution. Are you not worried about that?
Here's the thing. Even what you're saying, it is not exactly what he said. He didn't specifically say like terminating the Constitution. He was probably talking about ignoring the laws or refusing to enforce the laws.
Even those that are contained in the Constitution. He said that explicitly.
Yeah, but there's a big difference. There's a big difference.
Okay.
Another thing, the big thing about terminating the Constitution, because when you terminate the Constitution, is mean you don't have to all the laws in America no longer will be applied, because all the law in America is based on the Constitution. Without the Constitution, there's no other law in America will be feasible. Another thing also I wanted to say, here's the thing.
Wait, what?
I have to take Donald Trump on his own word.
Did you say anything just there?
Yes.
Was that even a point? I see. I swear you just said like a bunch of words.
No. What I said was, okay, let me repeat what I said. What I said was, I forgot the subject. You distracted me. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you just said a bunch of word salad.
Yes. Okay, so no, it wasn't the word salad. I tell you, what I said was all the laws in America is based on the U.S. Constitution. Without the U.S. Constitution, none of the law we have will be legal. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
All of the laws.
Yeah, but how does that point address anything that we said?
No. What I'm saying is, What you guys started talking about was talking about like Donald Trump going to suspend the Constitution. It's like if you suspend the Constitution, that means there's no laws going to be legal.
Okay. Wait, hold on. Cactus. We got to do this point blank, because you're being all over the place here. Question.
No, I'm not.
Question. Okay, I have a question for you. Yes or no question. Do you think that if Donald Trump eliminated parts of the Constitution, that would be bad? Yes or no?
Yes, I mean,
Okay,
eliminate
great.
anything about
Great.
politicians. One second. Because here's the thing. Whenever I
That's
answer, I
not the
need
end of
to
my. That's not
clarify.
the end of my questions. But go ahead.
Yeah. But here's the thing, because it's always good for people to know where I'm coming from. If Donald Trump eliminates something in the Constitution illegally, I'm 100% against it, because even something in the Constitution that or I'm already disagree with that in the Constitution. If
Okay.
Donald Trump limited that, I'm
Okay.
always going to against
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Let me clarify. Would it be bad for Donald Trump to unilaterally ignore Congress and eliminate aspects of the Constitution for his gain? Do you disagree with? Do you think that would be bad?
Yes, that would be
Okay,
bad.
great. Do you agree that Donald Trump made the claim that if the election was stolen, he would eliminate aspects of the Constitution that would be able to not let him override that election? Do you think
Yes.
that happened? Do you believe that
You
happened?
miss my point. You think I support that? I tell you no multiple times to your hair. I tell you no. But what I'm
You
talking
don't
about
wait. You
is,
don't believe he said that?
no. I'm not saying he didn't say that, because when you just like what you said before, I tell you, like, if Donald Trump suspend anything on the Constitution, is bad, and I will not gonna support it.
Okay.
But I'm not going to support that policy, because remember, when it comes to politicians in general, they will always hold multiple positions that even their voter don't support it. All it is. If that was the case, no one will vote for any candidate. because every candidate-
Okay. So let me be clear. Your argument is that Donald Trump is a fundamental liar who will say two different things so that his audience can pick and choose whichever policy best suits them, so that he would get his vote, and then he will enact whichever policy he actually believes in once he's in office. Is that your argument?
I haven't seen a politician who doesn't lie.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. I agree
As
with
he
you.
picks and chooses what he believes and
I
doesn't believe
agree
to
with
make
you
his
that
argument.
that is what Donald Trump does. I agree with you that that's what Donald Trump does.
Not just Donald Trump, like from
Wait,
Obama,
wait,
from Obama liars. From,
Okay, what did
Hillary
Obama
Clinton
lie about? What
to,
did
to
Obama lie
Kamala
about?
Harris. Yes, they're
What
all
did Kamala?
lies.
Wait,
including
Kamala
Mulvaney.
Harris. First off, Kamala Harris could not have lied. Could not on an ontological level have lied, because she was never in office. She did not become president of the United States. So if she
So
goes,
you have to be president to lie
if,
or not.
well, if she's campaigning to be president, she says, if I'm in president, I will move up the minimum wage to $15 an hour. She did not lie because she didn't become president of the United States. So she didn't make a lie.
So you have to make a promise about when you win election to lie. Is
That's
that
what
your
you're
point?
referring to. You're talking about election promises.
No. If you're talking about based on lies, but I'm just asking you, people lies, because lie for me, lie is a lie. It doesn't matter like what kind of position you are.
Okay, what did
Lie
Kamala
is
lie
always
about?
a
What did
lie.
Kamala lie about? I would love to hear what Kamala lied about.
What Kamala lies about?
Mhm.
Lies about that she wasn't the one that controlling the border, and when she was the border, what they call it,
Oh my gosh, I have to pull this up again.
was
So
controlling the border, right? And
we'll,
Kamala
we'll
Harris
go.
also deny there wasn't a border crisis at the border. That's Kamala Harris said
Calculus.
that.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Calculus. Do you know what the Central America Forward Project is?
I gotta get
Are you
going soon.
familiar
I'm
with
sorry,
that?
guys.
Me too. I gotta start the drive to
Okay,
Florida tomorrow.
I'll just do the debunking. Okay, so Kamala Harris specifically put in charge of solving the root causes of white people immigrating. That was what she did with the Central America Forward Project. She specifically went to Central American countries in the Northern Triangle and to address the fundamental reasons for people coming over, mainly economic disparaging, and she got investors to actually invest in those countries. She was never directly put in charge of actual border policy. That was still left up to, who was it? I forgot exactly who was in charge of DHS at the time, but that was still left up to the Secretary of DHS. If you actually read what Biden said, he directly talks about addressing root causes. She was never put in charge of actual direct border policy. Base debunk. Okay. See you later.
See you guys. Scratch, I love you. I love everyone.
You need to love socialism. Someday.
I will love. I don't know. I don't know about that one. Maybe if the people who were advocating for it did it in a more tasteful way, if we could reincarnate, copy and paste, Scratch, and do like an army of Scratches advocating for socialism, maybe.
Maybe? Okay. I don't blame you. A lot of people out here socialism are
Yes, some of the
iffy.
people who are like socialism, they're like, I can't even give it an impression because I'm so done. I'm so gone right now. But like, it's like socialism, and then it's followed by "I hate you for saying the word bitch." I don't know. That's just a true story.
You're not allowed to insult people because any insult is automatically ableist, and I'm gonna cancel you over it.
Exactly. Yeah, I stubbed my toe and I said "son of a bitch," and they said that I was misogynistic. Well, this is someone who is trying to sell me
You need
socialism.
to you need to start looking inwards and demolish your internalized misogyny. Okay, that's your problem.
I love you. Yeah, yeah. I said, you know what? You can keep that socialism, and I will keep stabbing my toe and saying, "Son of a bitch." So yeah, but I love you. If we had scratch in the copy and paste machine, maybe we'd make it happen.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna DM you in Discord. I don't know what I can do
Are you in?
for
Are
the
you in?
Central America.
Are you in the dis? You're in the Discord, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm in Discord, so I don't know like what I can do for at least this for the Unfuck America tour, but we'll see.
Okay, and you're in the creator portion.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think I should.
good.
Actually, I don't. Wait, let me check that.
If not, I'll make sure you are. Cause
Okay,
all right.
sounds good then.
Blah blah, guys. We're going on tour, man. Unfuck America. This is gonna be lit. So, link in bio. Get tickets or donate, whatever you like. Party down. Good night, guys. Going to bed. I'm driving to Florida tomorrow. All right.